Welcome to the Dogger Pass Podcast. I'm your host, Dan Tom, at Dan Tom MMA. This is work you can find across the internet for some time now. But on this here program, the Dogger Pass Podcast, well, we break down high-level MMA. That's what we're going to do here tonight. Whenever you're listening to this, hopefully it's before the fight, because we're going to be breaking down UFC 320. It's a big pay-per-view card, so I got to bring in the big guns. My co-host, as usual, the man himself at Madlab MMA. You can find him at themadlabmma.com. What is up, Mike?
What's going on, dude? What's ready to roll? Had a little bit of a down week last week. We both with the main event. We're entitled to that, though. So we're going to bounce back big on a card this week. That's a little top heavy. Yep. But overall, I got to be honest with you. Like, first look, I was like, And then as I'm looking at them, they're actually really good matchups. Like, they're very, very interesting matchups. You can make an argument for a lot of the dogs. You can make an argument for why they should be such big favorites. But I'm excited to break this one down. I'm actually done. My work is done, which is odd. I got everything going during football. I was watching football on Sunday, and I just dove in. And usually I'm not done until like early Friday, but all my stuff is pretty much done, except for the wager. Man.
Nice. Yeah. I feel like I'm that way too. I'm going to have some wagers to feed you guys. Spoiler/no spoiler alert there. But I feel the same way that there's fights that I want to dive deeper into. And as usual, Mike, you're the same way. We're always transparent with you guys as far as how the depth of our analysis. But I've targeted almost all the matchups I wanted to target. But there are some really interesting ones, to your point. Even lower on the card where it really gets weak. And I tried to talk about this too much. I feel like I've been good. Usually people accuse me of complaining about cards, but usually we get into it. We're excited to be here and break down the fights. And I feel that way again, folks. So let's keep that energy rolling. I know, yes, we are coming off of that loss. And I will say in our defense, our consensus dog picks record is probably still really good overall, main events and otherwise. But we definitely whiffed there. And sympathies to anybody whose night was costed with the Jake Matthews mishap and stuff.
How crazy is that, dude? How crazy is that?
Yeah,
I have a feeling he's appealing that, and I have a feeling he's going to win that appeal. Appeals don't usually go there in favor of the person appealing.
Right.
I actually think he might win that appeal.
I will say, though, and I forgot to mention this on last week's show. I was getting too excited with my Jake Matthews, or my new favorite Australian name, Nevejo Stealing. But the Australian refs, though, and maybe the commission will be the same way because commissions always deny appeals, but Australian refs are always hardest on the Australian fighters. Like, they let them get their ass kicked. Like John Sharp, remember Stipe Miocic, Mark Hunt? How bad that was? That was John Sharp. He was letting the Australian guy get his ass beat. Steve Percival, how many ass beatings has that guy allowed? But mainly like Anthony Perosh. He let like Ryan Bader make Anthony Perosh look like he was away from keyboard, just like getting pounced on for rounds. And then you got this more newbie Australian guy to Jake Matthews, to where it's like, oh, you're getting finished? Like, stop the fight. Like, nah. And even when your Australian guy's winning the fight, they're like, nah, you didn't win the fight. Keep going. I'm like, damn, dude, the Australian refs are brutal to these Australian fighters, Mike.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy, man. The card was interesting. It was definitely a weird card, but listen, we what is it called? We bounced back from a I don't know if it was a bad read as much as it was. I mean, I guess the main event could have been you could call it a bad read, but listen, we're not a lot of guys that are going to sit back and be, it's rigged, it's fixed, and then when we win, it's not rigged and it's not fixed, and then we lose, it's rigged, it's fixed. We take our L. I'll say it was a bad read on the main event, but I mean, this is the first L I think I took on from a wagering perspective in probably 2 months. You know what I mean? So it's fine. I took a 1 unit loss altogether on the night, which I'm fine with. And I'm looking to bounce back and get a lot of, that and a lot more back this week.
Yeah, I agree, man. It's definitely a bounce back week, hopefully. And even my terrible ass usually does better on these pay-per-views because it's more known products, and that's what I usually like to target. So let's jump right in. Let's not waste any more time. And let's get into it because, like we said, it is top heavy. It's UFC 320. It's headlined by another rematch. But this one kind of makes sense, I guess. So we've got Magomed Ankalaev, the defending champion. He is your favorite, minus 255 this time around. Much wider odds, both opening and push, with the comeback on your underdog, the former champ, now challenger, Poatan Pereira, plus 205. 5-round fight, Mike. So the over totals are set for 3.5 rounds, with the over 3.5 rounds minus 120, under 3.5 rounds plus 100. which means they don't exactly know where it's going to go from a total perspective, nor should they, right? Nor should they. But the odds bet makers and public are feeling pretty good about Ankalaev. Before I toss it over to you, Mike, I'm going to, gratiate you, mainly the audience, with some stats here. We'll see. Magomed Ankalaev in rematches, right? He's 2-0 in those rematches. Now they're to two wild men and in weird fights that he probably should have won and ended quickly, for whatever that's worth, for whatever we can take from those. That was, of course, his rematch with Iwan Cutelaba, and it was Johnny Walker, right? Two wild men there for Ankalaev. Whereas Poatan, he is 1-1 in MMA rematches, right? He lost the rematch to Adesanya, and which was in totality their fourth fight if you count kickboxing. But MMA rematches, right? He lost that one. He was looking good, came in with the right ideas. And in his second rematch that he won, that was against, of course, Jiří Procházka. Now, in Yuri's defense, that was kind of a shorter notice fight. Remember, for UFC 303, Alex Pereira was on his, Captain Save a Show. He was Captain Save a Show last year for the UFC. So that was like a part of that run. And in kickboxing, for those of you curious, he's also kind of a 500 record. He is 3-3 in his kickboxing rematches. Now, the kickboxing sample size is kind of weird because you've got a lot of. I always use the Lawler-Hendricks fights, and I'm pretty sure we've talked about this before, Mike. And if I'm a betting man, I bet you'll agree with me and pick up what I'm putting down. Where, as great as those fights were with Lawler and Hendricks, you could argue that the results were wrong. They kind of got him flipped around, right? You could argue that Johnny actually, won the second one, or however it was, I forget, but you could flip the results. Now Poatan, one of the rematches that he loses is to Cesar Almeida, who's now in the UFC. And if you watch that fight, that was like a perfect case where like Poatan won that fight. Like Cesar Almeida actually had a closer argument to winning like their first fight, right? And like you could do that the same way with the Artem Vahitovs, the more relevant, even to this contest, because there was a lot of clinch striking and whatnot. You got another Russian guy who can switch stances, but Poatan arguably lost that first fight, or arguably, lost that first fight, and then in the rematch he lost, but he arguably won it, right? So I'm not trying to get too lost into the weeds here, but what you can collect from that is, like I always say, stats are just numbers. They don't tell the whole story. And why would you bring that up, Dan? Why would you even go back to look at those? I've already done the study before, but the reason why I would go back to look at it is because you want to see how a fighter comes into a rematch. They come uber conservative, right? Even though Magomed Ankalaev's fights ended in the first round, he was much more back foot. He was much more careful in those fights. And how does Pereira come into his rematch as well? He's always come in really well prepared with a good idea how to beat his opponent. Now, does it mean he always beats him? Like I said, no, even sometimes when he should, right? But he does come in with a good idea here. And against Southpaws, the last thing I'll throw to you guys before I throw it to Mike here, Poatan is 2-1 against dedicated UFC level left. Of course, that loss comes to Ankalaev in the last fight. And, the wins, come against guys like Rountree. Southpaws, where he did use his jab was not as there, nor were his punches in the Ankalaev fight, as I'm sure me and Mike will discuss here in a second. And of course, that first Southpaw win, as I should already have it pulled up here, is apologies. People shouting at their screen. I'm usually that guy. It was not Bruno Silva, because it was Jamal Hill. Of course, it was Jamal Hill, fight that didn't last long. So sorry for that long interlude, folks. Just wanted to lay out some stats and context before I throw it Mike's way. Mike, do you agree with the odds here, or are you uncertain of this fight? What's your take, man?
I definitely don't agree with the odds. I mean, that I'll tell you right now. I don't agree with these odds. You're giving me, what people are, the thing that bothers me about I think it's safe to say that there's a lot more casuals in the MMA space than there are like the OGs. Like there still is a huge group of us, but over the years, because of Conor McGregor, I think a lot of newer guys have come in, and girls, which is good. We've always wanted that. Like you can't complain, right? You can't sit here and say, well, I want more people to get eyes on our sport and see it's not human cockfighting. And then all of a sudden, like we get all these people, now we're complaining. But the fact of the matter is a lot of the analysis that comes out, you just see, and I pigeoned this term, how soon you guys forget. Like how soon people forget how great Alex Pereira is, how everybody was singing his praises, how everybody was saying, who's going to beat this guy? This guy is unstoppable, this and that. And then he takes an L in a fight where optics look different. But if you go to the judges' scorecards, they were 48-47 across the board, except for one card. One card had a little bit more of a wider gap in scoring. But at the end of the day, it was 48-47. I mean, two judges had a 48-47. In rounds that optically went towards Ankalaev, yes, because he was doing a lot of pushing forward. He was doing a lot of cage grinding and stuff like that. But he didn't get a takedown in that fight. Like, if you look at that, you're like, well, it's grappling is going to be the key here. No, he didn't get a takedown. As a matter of fact, he's got like 3 takedowns in like his last 6 fights. It's not like he's this takedown machine. One of the reasons why the UFC doesn't really appreciate him that much and why it took him so long to get a title shot was because they look at him like, what kind of champion is this guy going to be? He's not marketable. He doesn't have a personality. He's kind of a boring fighter. But I was the guy who said, if there's one guy that can beat Pereira, it's probably Ankalaev if he puts it all together, because he's got a good chin. He's got fast hands, underappreciated hands. He's got grappling. He's very well rounded. So that's a recipe for somebody that can possibly test Alex Pereira. But he beat him in a very different way in the first fight. Like, he beat him in a very different way. I mean, he utilized some of the things that I thought he could utilize, which was, putting Pereira on the back foot. Pereira's a guy that you got to put on his back foot. When he's putting you on your back foot, he just owns the cage. When you put him on his back foot, it's not that he's lost, but you could see he becomes a little bit uncertain. He starts to fire out of desperation instead of trying to fire to tie things together and make things happen. And Ankalaev did a tremendous job putting him on his back foot. And those optics, obviously were the result. But when I look at this fight and I look at, the fight over again, I watch it over again, the optics look bad, yes. But as far as strike for strike and punch for punch and damage for damage, it was very close. It was like just minor adjustments, minor tweaks that Alex Pereira could have made. And you made up a good point about how he does come back and he always does come prepared. That's partially for him. That's partially a credit to him, but it's partially a credit to how serious Glover takes this. Mm-hmm. Glover takes these fights very, very seriously. Glover looks at him almost like he's his son. And he's a very underrated game planner. He's a very underrated coach, Glover. He does not get the credit that he deserves. So when I look at this fight and I see the minor adjustments that need to be made with this, like, his takedown defense is not bad. His takedown defense is pretty good. He is an athletic guy. Yes, he's getting up there in age, but he's got all the tools to absolutely just put it in maybe a half a more gear, and we could have been talking about a different kind of a fight. I also think what played a factor in the first fight is, I got to be honest with you, I don't think AP was all there. I don't think he was completely checked in for that fight. I really, really don't. You go and you back and you see some of his social media from the past, and he's buying Lamborghinis and Ferraris and Harleys, and he's traveling here and he's traveling there. And credit to him. That's what you're supposed to do as a champion. Yep. You've reaped the benefits and of rewards of all your hard work. He deserves that. He deserves every bit of that. But you can start to buy into yourself, because the people are saying how you're unstoppable. Nobody can beat you. You're this mythical creature. And then all of a sudden you get humbled and you lose your belt. And then all of a sudden reality hits you again. And yeah, you're still that same guy. People still think you're a great fighter. Your legacy is not tarnished. But at the end of the day, now here's a rematch where you get an opportunity to right that ship. But here's the thing. In his fight, in the first fight, when he lost, you lost your belt. Everybody loses their belt. Everybody either retire, like, the belt's always got to switch hands. It's just a fact of life. But when you back in now in this fight and you say, okay, I got a chance to right this ship. If he loses this fight, there will always be an asterisk next to his name saying Alex Pereira was great, but he couldn't get by this guy Ankalaev. That's going to go down with his credentials. Well, what a generational fighter for a light heavyweight, but there was one guy that he couldn't get by. Right. I think his attitude, I think his game planning, I think that everything that I've been seeing and hearing is he's taking this a lot more seriously. He's not really, buying into himself like he bought into himself before with the Nina drama stuff and all the funny videos and eating lunch and girls walking by. Like, he was living like kind of a Conor McGregor-esque silent lifestyle without all the illegal stuff, where now it's like, okay, well, this not only is I got to right this ship, I want to get my belt back. You have a chance to, write history for yourself, but also you have an opportunity if you do lose, like, there will be that asterisk. Like, to me, this is more of a legacy fight for him. I think he's going to come in prepared for this fight. I think Ankalaev is going to come in and not change much. I don't think he's really going to do much different. I think he's going to keep the. Why would you change? Well, you don't.
Yeah.
Broken. You push forward. You put him on his back foot. You try to clinch him up on the cage, and those little inches and centimeters that Pereira needs to fix. I think he's going to fix, and I think he's going to win this fight. I think Pereira's going to get his belt back on Saturday night.
Wow. Okay. So I was curious, man, because I felt like I was going back and forth on this one. Part of it is because that steering wheel bias I always talk about. Sometimes you stop yourself, right? It's healthy to do this, but in my case and many, you do a little too much where you're like, oh, my only picking this guy because this is your guy. It's this Poatan. He's come through for you a bunch. I'm not saying it's a direct comparison, by the way, but perhaps kind of like you're speaking of Alex Hernandez, right? You're like, hey, look, listen, I'm not saying this is a sure shot. I'm taking my shot on him because you're getting, the plus money, and he's done me well, right? And then this and that. Kind of a similar attitude here, it feels like, for both of us, if I may say, Mike. But the process and the things you were saying, so it's interesting, right? Because you were saying, not sure if he's taking it serious or how this or that, and all those intangibles are very real, right? But I'm always careful about, getting lost in there, right? Because you could be lost in what I call speculation city, right? That speculation city. We're kind of just speculating, right? However, what there is evidence of is we can say, fast cars, girls, attention, and we can argue about the piece of the proverbial pie on the graph and how much is responsible for what. But what is undeniable is the Donald Cerrone example, right, Mike? The Donald Cerrone example fits what you're saying. Now, Donald Cerrone wasn't living the same lifestyle as a Conor McGregor, but he was out getting he was out wilding out and taking a bunch of fights, and that pace, maybe we'll talk about, in a fight to come very soon, folks. That pace can kind of catch up with you if you're not careful, right? So what I'm saying here is maybe it was just a matter of time for Alex Pereira to have one of those performances, and that's totally understandable and explainable. To your point, right, Mike?
The only thing I'll cut in real quick and let you go back
please.
Cowboy Cerrone never lived up to a big spot. He would go on his 4-fight win streak, but as soon as the lights got bright, he would crumble. He would have an adrenaline dump, and so I agree with his outside mannerisms with his jet skiing and his dirt bikes and all the crazy shit that he did on the that doesn't help. But he never lived up to a big spot. He was the most fadeable fighter when it came to a big spot.
Yeah, if we focus on that aspect, perhaps that shoots down my comparison. I'm more talking about activity, right? And we can bring up a bunch of other fighters for that too. Even good fighters like Neil Magny. You can only stay so active until you drop the ball, no matter what level you're at, right? And that's just a fact of life. So there's that. But what I find more interesting and what is more evidence-based to me, Mike, and I went back to watch this fight a lot, right, is part of the reason why I was picking Poatan. And when I went back, when you go back to watch the fight, even though I feel like Ankalaev is the correct and better score for the fight, going back to watch it, it's a lot closer than the one thing we can all agree on, no matter what our perspective. It's much closer than a lot of us thought it was, both going into it and even coming out of it, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And B, when I went back to read my breakdown, I actually picked the fight, Mike, to go to I wrote a contentious decision where we're going to be arguing over damage, over control in what are kind of low active rounds. So my analysis was actually kind of spot on, even though my Poatan pick was incorrect. And you could say, oh, there was an argument for him. I'm not hanging on to that. I feel like Ankalaev was the better score. Why was it the better score, and why did I pick him? Well, I picked Poatan to beat Ankalaev, despite him losing. Because against southpaws, he tends to do well, right? Now, what do I always say about southpaws? I look to see, most people look to see, are they going for outside foot position and throwing their right? Like, those are the basic day one. They're not wrong, but those are the basic day one things that sadly, even at a high level in MMA, motherfuckers don't get past. They just stay in that mindset. Like, whereas guys really good, they know that they can jab with southpaws, and they know the importance of that lead hand dynamic. And if you watch the fight, Mike, this is what I'm curious, especially with your boxing analysis, dude, I feel like I had to watch the fight for multiple times. I had to watch it once to rewatch it. I had to watch it once to do my timestamps for the Southpaw report that's going to be coming to Homa Fight, as well as check my Twitter, folks. But I feel like you could watch it alone just for their hand play, right? Just for the hand play. A lot of people are talking about the directionality being key, even DC in commentary, and they're not wrong, right? In fact, most MMA fights, the guy who comes forward wins because both the striking is not at the level of boxing and the criteria is completely different. It's easier to win a boxing match on the back foot. You know this, Mike. They're actually rewarding things like defense, footwork matters, all these things, as far as ring generalship goes, a lot more value in how they score boxing than MMA, right? Especially this iteration. So in MMA, oftentimes the guy who comes forward often wins, right? And that's not with every dynamic, right? Sometimes you've got a really good counter striker and he's going to walk right into the trap. But with this fight, not only is that true, you got to ask yourself deeper, why is that true? And if you care to ask yourself that, most people don't. I know we'll break down much faster after these big fights, folks. But the reason why the directionality played out the way it did, and the reason why what's going to be key for both fighters coming into this, Mike, tell me if you agree, is that lead hand play. Again, it comes back to that lead hand. And if you look at it, it's easier to steal the striking initiative in MMA than it is boxing. However, I would argue, and again, you tell me if I'm wrong, Mike, I would argue the striking initiative is harder to keep, conversely, in MMA than it is boxing. And a lot of times you can get the initiative by kicking, like Barbosa or Gaethje. You can get that kicking initiative, right? That can be big. Look at the rematch with Davis and Figueiredo, Brandon Moreno. The kicking initiative was stolen really early in that fight. You can use it by just punching the guy first, right? But sometimes you don't have to strike to have the striking initiative, right, Mike? A lot of the times it's that lead hand. Are you dictating? Are you making that person think about what's coming next? That alone, boom, you have the torch, run. You have the initiative, right? And you can watch them go back and forth with that initiative off the lead hand in that fight. Am I talking crazy minutia here, Mike? Or are you picking up what I'm putting down? Did you see that as well?
Yeah, I do. And I think that was one of the mistakes that, like I said, there's sometimes I wish I could be inside the camp. I wish I could just get in Glover's ear and be like, trust me when I tell you, this is what I saw, this is what can work. And you're right, that lead hand play is played a big factor. But the problem with Pereira is, and it shouldn't be a problem, it should actually be a benefit, is that when you're having a lot of hand play, it means that you're having issues finding your range, or you're having trouble keeping that fighter in the range that you want him in. So how do you nullify that? Yes, you can hand play, you could parry, you could do all these different things, but your legs are longer than your arms. So if you can fight, in boxing, you don't have that, because you have to do one of two things. You either want a guy like Pereira, you want to be all the way in, or you want to be all the way out. You don't want to be in the mid-range. Yeah. And Ankalaev did a tremendous job. All the way in, all the way in, all the way in. He just kept going in. He stayed out of the mid-range, all the way in, all the way. But to nullify that is, yes, you could do all this hand play and stuff like that. You fire off leg kicks, and you keep them out. You keep him out. You keep him out. You keep him out. You keep letting him slide out, slide out, slide out. Eventually, he's going to get the point. And I don't think Pereira did that enough. I don't think he utilized his kicks as much as he should have. I think if he uses that as his range finder, forget about hand play, use your kicks, use your leg kicks to keep him where you want to keep him. I think he'll find a lot of success, and I think he'll end up keeping him in the mid-range exactly where he wants him. Because when they were in the mid-range, that's when he had success.
Yes.
Ankalaev was all the way out where he kind of couldn't find them, and then when Ankalaev's all the way in, Pereira's not a good fighter off his back foot. He just never was. He'll fight off a combination off the fence, and catch you with something, but 9 out of 10 times, like if he's on his back foot, it means he's uncomfortable. So you want to keep him in the mid-range. And how do you do that? You're going to nullify him with just unload on his legs, let him check kicks, let him slide out, let him know that if he's going to enter the fray, he's going to get caught with something. And then that'll set up a kick. That'll set up something, question mark kick or something like that. So little thing like that, like you just mentioned, the hand play, but now nullify that another way, you're going to see a completely different fight at that point.
Yeah, see, here's the thing where slight disagreement and then also slight agreement. I actually thought he did a lot of kicks in the last fight and not enough of the hands. And to the hand play point, it was Magomed that was often grabbing his wrist to shut that down. And I was like, what's the difference? Why did he jab so much in the Khalil fight and not the Ankalaev fight is what I'm trying to get at. And off first glance, I'm like, well, Khalil is more happy to counter and be on the back foot. And he's also more prone to go high shell, right? Muay Thai high guard. And if you're a high guard, what are you not doing? You're not having lead hand play, right? So both the pressure aspect, where we talk about going forward, and the keys to having that pressure, lead hand play, Khalil didn't have that much of a presence on it on paper. I went back to watch the fight. he has much more than you think he did, than I thought he did, I should say. So still, what is the difference? Now, here's the thing. Poatan, why I go less speculation city. Poatan said he had an injury, didn't classify what it was. Mike, I think it was his right hand. Even though I'm focusing on why wasn't the left there. Well, if your right's there, you think, well, the problem is, if the problem's with the right hand, well, that shouldn't affect his jab. That's common sense logic, right, Mike? But you know as well as I do is that if you don't have that rear hand, whether it's home position for defense or offense, you kind of feel exposed, and that's going to throw your game off. You know, you're down an arm, right? And if you look at it, even the crook, it's his ankle, his wrist was like almost like crooked like this. I counted, Mike. I only needed one hand to counter the right hands. He, not even the ones he landed, just threw to the end of round 3. I got to 5. 15 minutes, 5 right hands. That's not good. Again, What do we talk about when most people are throwing a southpaw? That's the main thing motherfuckers are throwing, right? They're spamming the right kick. They're spamming. He was actually not throwing his right side a lot, right? Like he was throwing the lead leg step up kick and then a lot of hand play. And the crazy part is, you know, now what side are you on, Dan? Well, you're taking so long. The crazy part is the reason why I'm ending up on Poatan, spoiler alert, like Mike here, is because think about it. If he got that close with one hand, Mike. Now this is speculation that's safer than was it the activity? Was he checked out? Like this we can actually measure. We have evidence, right? We have things we can measure. If that right hand is there this fight, and that helps the lead hand, right? Because you were bringing up Glover and your defense, Glover was telling him the right things in the corner. They were calling for more jabs. They knew, but maybe, you know, they also knew that the right hand wasn't there because like, you're right. Poatan, he's not great off the back foot, but what does he have? He has that 2-3 or that 3-2 return. That's just death defying, right? He didn't even really have those. And the times he did counter, he hit Ankalaev with that right hand, but then he kind of was like frozen, couldn't really follow up for one reason or another. And, you know, Ankalaev would fight his way back into the exchange, close into the clinch and whatnot. And to something you said earlier, back to where I hard agree with you, back on something you first said on this breakdown, folks. Mike said that you didn't say the reason why, but I'm going to go ahead and pontificate and assume it's the same reason I came to the conclusion. Mike said that he doesn't think that something along the lines that Ankalaev will change much, right? Now, the way I was going to phrase that exact same thing, Mike, was I was going to say that we're talking about the potential for Poatan fighting better.
Or he might do more of the same. You know, he's not going to change anything, or he might just do more of the same. You know, thinking he's going to have all the success, just constantly moving forward, you know, clinching him up against the cage and thinking maybe Poatan's not going to have an answer to pummel or get on the hook and just and switch out. Maybe he's just going to keep that game plan. Why fix it? I mean, why fix something that's not broken? You won with that game plan last time. So I don't see much of a change. I don't see him like all of a sudden spamming takedowns, and I don't see that happening.
Well, here's my reason. Here's my reasoning for the same conclusion is that I honestly felt like he fought the perfect fight last time.
He did.
Now people will be like, he didn't get him down. People will be like, but he didn't get him down. Like, listen, if you watch his fights, that's not the crux of his game. And even in keeping that same energy, my pre-fight breakdown, I and others didn't think he was going to necessarily get him down in the first place either. So I don't even count that against Ankalaev. I think he fought the best, smartest fight possible. And not only that, for the styles, specifically for Ankalaev, because what was part of the reason why I picked against Ankalaev the first time, Mike? It's because of fight IQ. Now, both these guys have a weird habit, by the way, of go through their careers. These guys both have the propensity to finish, or in both cases, but mainly Poatan's case, to get finished at the end of the rounds. Something about the end of the rounds, these guys like almost get it every time. You know, Ankalaev getting triangled by Craig, or Ankalaev even in victories, right? Almost getting finished by Poatan. The kicks that you were talking about, Mike. Remember end of round 5, which is another reason why the under scares me here at 4.5, because even though, spoiler alert, if rematches don't often end up in the same way, well, how does it end up different? Well, perhaps it ends up different with me and Mike being right with our Poatan pick, right? But oftentimes rematches in MMA don't go the same way. When I say that, I'm not even talking about results, folks. The fight itself often looks different, right, Mike?
Yeah.
So my most confident play is actually fight ends by KO, which I got at -110. It's went up since then because I think one of these guys finishes the other, even though I am on Poatan here. But folks, if this guy Ankalaev, who's had terrible fight IQ at times, right? Like waiting to get his legs kicked out from underneath him to start shooting for takedowns against Jan, right? And that costed him in the draw, right? Like this guy is full of kind of silly fight IQ, right? And he comes out, and credit to him, right? He kind of has this Cody Garbrandt, Dom Cruz, like he shows up when it's time to show up. Credit to him. Right scorecard, in my opinion, as a Peloton backer. Credit to him. But Mike, we both came up with different conclusions that we have a hard time seeing him fight better. And arguably, if you count his history, how much can we even count on him replicating that same fact? Right.
Well, that's the whole thing.
Right. Whereas
listen,
Peloton,
forget about like people who are saying takedowns. Oh, you didn't get a takedown. Let me tell you something. First of all, he didn't need a takedown. That's number one. And the reason why you cage crawl the way he was doing is for three main reasons. One is so the fighter can carry your weight and build up that lactic acid in his arm, also taxing his conditioning, which is huge for a guy like Peloton, who's a striker. Second is to you're controlling the rhythmic tempo, and you're taking a striker out of his rhythm. Strikers need rhythm. Strikers need rhythm. So if he starts lacing you up a little bit, and all of a sudden you put him against the cage now, and you're stalling him out, and he's trying to lobby for position to try to get out, not only did you take him out of his rhythm, but you're also making him wear your weight. You know what I mean? So like he did everything right. And like you said, I just don't know if this dude can fucking carbon copy that. You know what I mean? So maybe he can. Maybe he knocks him out this time. Maybe he fights even better. But I can't go against Peloton just because he had one bad game plan tonight.
Absolutely. Just to close out the point there, in comparison to Magomed Ankalaev's potential improvements that we just talked about and capped, right? And then you compare that to what we talked about with Peloton, his potential improvements, especially, Mike, if he was fighting one-handed and he was still almost able to arguably beat Ankalaev, right, with one hand or whatever he was dealing with, / the best version of Ankalaev, even just looking at that alone. So from a numbers perspective, you're going to go, and that's fine that you're making Peloton the underdog. No issue there. But now he didn't open this way as public money, but now he's been pushed north to 2 to 1 odds.
That's crazy.
And even at plus 200, I was tempted to like not play it. But Mike, it went to plus 220, and I had to fire a unit there.
I don't blame you, dude. I don't blame you. I think that's insane that this guy's a 2 to 1 underdog.
Yeah, absolutely. He can win the decision. Again, I picked him to win a decision. I even picked him to win a decision against Izzy the first time they fought in MMA, by the way, which wasn't a crazy. It looked like an insane call to pick him, much less by decision. And if Izzy didn't get finished right with the standing stoppage, it still would have been because that fight was a lot closer than people thought too. So again, I don't know, man. We'll see. We'll have to rack up potential Benji boy dog of the week here in Peloton. Page mark.
Yeah,
I already called it with Dayton and another dog that I suspect will be both beyond, which we'll get to that. So before we get to this next fight, and apologize, rematches, it's a big fight. Want to talk about it a bit, folks. Just wanted to shout out the chat. Hit that like button. Shout out to my guy Brian D89. You're right, man. I forgot to mention we did the head-to-head, and I don't have to rock the stupid PFP.
Yeah, I don't know what I got to do. We'll talk about it at the end.
Yeah, I know you were kind of a little bit poo-poo on the movie reviews, which I still would love to. I've got some chambered for Mike to make him watch and give a little quick review. But if I know you guys listeners also had a lot of food suggestions. You got to find one that Mike and me will agree on those. So feel free to hit us with those in the chat. The King Raheem is up in there. Morgan Harder. What's up, guys? It's nice to see y'all up in here. Hit that like, subscribe, share. And like my guy Clint said, the YouTube algorithms have been particularly tough on these gambling shows lately. So your guys' shares and support really do mean a lot. On that note, let's get on with the show. Enough yapping from us from there. Let's go to the co-main event. Another title fight, Mike. Not a rematch, but a fight that is, I feel like we're going to get eventually here at some time or the other. We got Merab Dvalishvili defending his title against Cory Sandhagen. Dvalishvili sitting champion minus 400. Come back on your challenger, the underdog Sandhagen, plus 300. Total set for this 5-round affair, 4.5 rounds. The over 4.5, minus 350. Under 4.5, plus 280. This is one of those where, like, sometimes, the knockout prop on a Derek Lewis fight will match his money line, because they're just like, it's so one true outcome, right? So to speak. And despite Dvalishvili getting a finish his last time out, they're doing the same with the over totals with Dvalishvili's money line. They're almost making them even, which is completely sensible. That being said, do you think that the money line is a bit too wide, Mike, or what are your thoughts on this one, buddy?
I think the money line is insane on this fight. I mean, I think it's absolutely ludicrous.
Yep.
And I'll be honest with you, if there's one person that can beat Merab, it's Sandhagen. It's his style, it's his length, it's his ability to scramble, it's his cage IQ. Even though Reese, as of late, some of his decision making hasn't been the greatest. I haven't agreed with everything, but he is such a freak talent in MMA. And a lot of it's attributed to that he really truly knows how to use his range in a very dynamic fashion. You know, a lot of guys have long range and they just kind of stick it out there and they use it just like we talk about rangefinders and stuff like that. But he doesn't only use it as rangefinders; he uses it completely to his advantage in all ways, and that can be very, very tricky. You know, especially for a guy like Merab, who's a little bit shorter in stature. He's got to be inside. He's got to get it on your hips. He's got to take you down. When you're dealing with a guy like Sandhagen, who kind of makes you, make these odd reads, almost like a Dominic Cruz in his prime, like just very hard guy to kind of pin down and figure out. This calls for a very dangerous fight for Merab. I really do think this is a very dangerous fight for him. With that said, Merab has done one thing that nobody's really been able to do in this landscape, and it's to prove to people, like when we talk about, well, what's the biggest attribute in MMA? We'll say, well, some people will say wrestling. For me, I say striking. Because personally, for me, I think that it's much harder to learn the dynamics of striking when you can actually, you could work on your takedown defense, you could counter wrestle, you could do things, but with striking, there's just so much involved. And if you look at the landscape of champions now, it's more leaning towards a lot of the guys are strikers. Dynamic strikers, good strikers, polished strikers. But he's brought a completely different animal to the game now. Now he brought something when we say, well, this guy has something that nobody else has. It's just freaky, endless cardio that he just uses it as his number one weapon. He's not the greatest wrestler. He's not the great, he's a good wrestler. He's a pressure wrestler. But what makes him so good is his ability just to keep chaining things together and have confidence in his cardio that he's never going to get tired. And even if you have great cardio, it's just human nature. As time goes on, you're going to get a little bit tired. You're going to huff and puff in between rounds. He doesn't. He keeps going and going. This guy, I'm convinced that if MMA gave him a 12-round fight, he would be able to last 12 rounds and probably look good doing it. And that's insane to me, because as your cardio and conditioning dwindle during a fight, not only do you get tired, but you also become more fragile. You also become more susceptible to getting knocked out or finished, just for the mere fact that you're getting a little lazier. Your legs are starting to get a little rubbery. They're starting to go a little bit, everything starts not break down, but slowly but surely, you're not what you were in the opening minute of the fight. With him, it's just like as the time goes on, he gets better and better and better. And no matter what kind of success you have against this guy, you got to continuously fight him off like a batch of flies. I can't bet against that. I can't bet against that. Like, the only person that's going to beat Merab is a guy who's going to catch him in something. Like, you're not going to outwork him. You're not going to, go 25 minutes with this guy and be like, wow, Sandhagen completely outworked Merab. Not going to happen. Nobody's going to outwork this guy. So the only way to beat him is you got to find these little windows that he does open up at times, these little windows that he opens up, and you got to catch him on a mistake. Cory Sandhagen is the guy who can make him make that mistake. I just can't bet against Merab. I just can't. I think anybody who picks Sandhagen in this spot, they're kind of hoping for a prayer that maybe Merab comes in a little, off that night, or he gets caught with something, or he gets caught in a scramble. And all this is very likely could happen. But the fact of the matter is, if you're just looking at anyone who matches up, he's a matchup nightmare against anybody. And I can't bet against that. So I'm going Merab by decision. I think Cory Sandhagen's tough enough to survive the whole fight. But I think Merab this is going to just be more of the same. I think it's going to be a close fight. I think Cory's going to have his moments. But at the end of the day, Merab's going to be too much for him down the stretch.
So we ended up in the same spot. However, because we agree on the line, I think the line's ridiculous, and I wouldn't bet Merab, which is crazy because he's a generational talent. He's moving up the pound for pound ranks. Probably going to get a lot of heat this week because I pushed back. Not even push back. I don't even care. I don't think it's a crazy opinion. You're welcome to have whatever opinion you want. I don't care. If you think Merab's the GOAT. The GOATs and pound for pounds are kind of silly perspective discussions anyways. My only issue is like, let's wait until the career kind of finishes, right? A lot of times we want to, this is the best. The newest thing comes out, this is the best. And it's human nature. I get it. And I don't want to add to that. But I bring that up only because Merab is now finally getting that respect, and you're seeing it reflected in the line, Mike. But Mike, I'll finish my thought, but I want to bounce this back to you real quick. The dangerous part about Merab fights for guys like me, especially, and perhaps yourself too, Mike, because you do the work as well, man. But like, is Merab one of those guys where like you understand what I'm saying, where you almost don't want to watch tape on him because you watch tape and you'll come away thinking like, how does this guy win? Look at this technique, right? When you're just breaking it down from that perspective, you could get almost really misled on a guy like Merab. Do you get what I'm saying there, Mike?
Yeah, especially when you watch his entries, when you watch him wrestling, sometimes he'll shoot from the other side of the cage. You're like, what the fuck is he doing? But it just, and it doesn't work. Like if you look at how he spans take, he doesn't get takedowns all the time. It's not like every takedown he get. They're ugly. They're not really fundamentally sound. But this guy just keeps like tick 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 tick, like we talked about last week. He just keeps coming forward, and eventually it's like, how much do I got to do to keep this fucking guy off me? So Sandhagen's got the ability to stay long and kind of sprawl and get out of there and keep him on the feet and maybe make him frustrated. That's where the things can get dangerous because Cory Sandhagen's a different kind of striker. But I don't know, man. When you got a guy 25 minutes just just coming at you, if you don't, I mean, what can you possibly do? But I agree. Like, I found 100 different ways that Sandhagen can beat him. I'm like, he could beat him here. He could do it this way. But then it just doesn't happen.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. Yeah, by the way, it looks like you could just wind him up. Kind of like how I described Lurato to you in a text. Like, there's R-word strong. Like, Merab's got, like, R-word cardio, There are
I've never seen anything like it. He might be the best conditioned athlete I've ever seen.
Yeah, it's insane. And like you said, Sandhagen is one of the few guys that can hold up with him on that. He is a guy that can draw things out. He's got the shot selection to punish. We haven't seen him get knockouts in a while, right? And if you look at the knockouts, they were stuff that would arguably knock anybody out if you duck into it like a flying knee, right? Against guys that were knockoutable, sadly, at that point of their career and past it, right? As much as we love Frankie Edgar, right? You got to kind of contextualize that. So you start questioning yourself, like, does he really have that knockout power? It was a guy like Marlon Moraes, you need a guy with that kind of power, right? Which, by the way, dude, even though Marlon Moraes was clearly past prime and falling off a cliff with his durability and cardio, what if he got to those wins against Cejudo and or against Merab? How different does his resume and career look, by the way, right? Crazy, right?
I think the reason why Cory has been kind of lackadaisical with his knockouts is not because he doesn't have power. I think it's the way he's generating his power. The way he generates his power now, like he's doing everything in motion. He's doing everything off balance. He's doing everything in motion. So it's not like he's biting down and just like stepping into something. You know what I mean? He's literally doing everything coming off the center line, falling backwards. So you're not generating that power like you would if you would just bite down, put your toe in the sand, and load up. Yeah. And that's probably why. But he's got the power to do it. It's just how he's generating it.
I completely agree. And I think he agrees too, Mike, because in the commentary, they're saying, ahead of this fight with Figueiredo, they're saying, because this was about the Figueiredo fight was, I believe, his second camp with Trevor Whitman over in Denver. He still trains in Denver, but now he's training over with Whitman, right? Which you're like, okay, sometimes, even though Whitman's good with fundamentals, some people criticize, can he make, his fighters like Rose or even Usman in some performances too much of a back foot fighter when, especially with Usman's case, pressure was better, right? But he does give him good punching fundamentals. And Sandhagen was talking about just that. He said he was being a little too flighty, which not only affected his power, but his pace. He was needlessly wearing down his pace. And, fighters can say what they want, take interviews with a grain of salt. But again, back to what I said, what's the evidence? We can get lost in speculation city. What's the evidence in the cage, right? That's the safest thing to tether us to reality here. It's not going to make us right, but it'll at least tether our speculation into reality. And what was Sandhagen doing? He was actually sitting down more. And not only that, he was sitting down on uppercuts against a shorter statured foe, potentially looking to take him down. And he nailed Figueiredo hard with multiple uppercuts in that fight. I know he won with the grappling, right? Which, by the way, the leg lock game and this and that, I could see Merab getting caught in a submission probably more than a knockout punch by Sandhagen. But whether it's the uppercut, just playing devil's advocate here, right? Or flying knee, Sandhagen could finish this fight on the feet more. But here's what I'm counting more on, Mike. I need Sandhagen to be competitive. I officially picked Merab by decision, but again, picks, plays, and analysis are three different things, folks. And you can't call me a bitch because I will gladly, more than I should, put my name next to big dumb dogs. I've done it here before, folks. That's not the issue here. The issue is it's hard to bet against Merab. Like Mike said, we came to the same conclusion. But you're going to put, Sandhagen, if he gets to plus 350, I feel like it's an auto bet on the money line for anybody as far as like a sprinkle. And he's getting close to that. I didn't do that, Mike. Here's what I did do. I took Sandhagen, which you can't get anymore. It's come down, but I got it at plus 145, the points handicap. Now, we always say you got to win at least one round in a 3-round fight. Well, this is a 5-round fight, Dan. How does it translate for those of us unaware? And apologies to those of you aware, just real quick. Basically, Sandhagen has to get he has to win 2 rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards and at least 1 round on another judge's scorecard. Now, there are other combinations to get to that 5.5 points handicap. If one judge scores it for Sandhagen and the others go 49-46 and only give him 1 round, that'll still count. We'll still get there, right? But the minimum there is Sandhagen has to get 2 rounds on 2 of the judges' scorecards, at least, generally speaking.
Yeah.
Now, Mike, I feel like he can get 1 for sure with a moment and stuff because Merab does a lot of his wins. He's kind of like, I know this is kind of a weird comparison, but Bryce Mitchell, they both have some, even Merab, I hold way above Bryce Mitchell, right? Obviously. But boy, do they both have some bullshit optics wins, man. Some real bullshit optics wins, right? Even when they're getting their eyes bust up, Mitchell against Ige or Umar. I'm not trying to be a part of the annoying Umar crowds. It was like robbery, or anything like that. But when I look back at that fight and I'm like, dude, not only did I go 48-47 Umar, I could argue 49-46 scorecard for Umar in there. Almost as good
wait,
as I
hold
could
on a second. You had the scorecards for Umar over Merab?
Not live, and I didn't. Not live, but when I go back to watch the fight, from a scoring perspective, absolutely. He's optics. He's bullshit winning. He's like, oh, you're not taking me to – like he actually took a lot of damage in the front half of that round, right? But what he does in round 5 and round 3, everyone's like, round 3 is a swing round. I actually think round 5 is a better round for Umar argument than round 3, right? But the crux of people's argument, and this is something I talk about all the time, Mike, which is why I hate the damage, and most impact people read it wrong. They go, yes, damage scores more. Yes, if you rock a guy, that scores more than a jab. But that doesn't mean you disregard the jab. Not only doesn't it mean you disregard the jab, it doesn't mean you disregard all the jabs in the round, right? Again, Robert Whitaker, Yoel Romero, 2, round 4. Perfect example. Yoel Romero doesn't land, much less throw a single strike. Robert Whitaker is literally jabbing him the whole time. Very end of the round, Romero lands a hard shot, and it does look like it wobbles Whitaker, right? More than any of those shots that people hung their hat on for Merab winning against Umar wobbled Umar. It didn't knock down Umar. It didn't even wobble Umar. And again, how do you judge how badly a guy's rock?
Well, you got to also factor in. You got to be able to decipher what the jab is. Is it a measuring jab? If he's sitting there and he's just kind of like measuring to keep his measure to find his range, you can't really score that. That's almost like hand playing. If he's sticking them and he's stinging them and he's stinging them and they're meant with conviction, then yes, you score them. But one thing about Whitaker, that's what Whitaker does do a lot. He kind of just throws out measurement jabs.
But Umar wasn't jabbing. Umar did jab, by the way. His southpaw jab was having an effect on Merab, but he was hitting him with left hands, left crosses, hard body kicks, which we know judges don't reward body work as much as they should. So I absolutely stand by. I don't think it's crazy at all to score for Umar. I just didn't want to be a part of that annoying crowd who's like, Robert. I hate that bullshit or whatever. Like, but if you really go back
to the Jake Matthews thing, I mean, we could have fucking screamed to high heaven. Right. I lost 2 parlays because of that. That kind of, but I didn't say nothing. I'm just like, it is what it is.
But I'm just saying, whether it's a bunch of jabs or a sorted offense like Umar, what we're talking about is almost a 90% to 10% split of scoring offense, right? Now that 10%, it's got to be fucking. If you're going to come away from a round giving the guy with the 10% offense over the 90%, well, that better be a damn good 10%, right?
Yeah.
And you better be damn sure it hurt him, right? I mean, so again, you need like a serious knockdown to, quote, steal the round, which, by the way, when you take the judging courses, folks, they actually dissuade you. They will have you explain the round. And if you go, yeah, Umar was landing the better shots, but I think Merab stole the round at the end with the right hand, they'll tell you to sit down. Your score is now disqualified.
Yeah.
When you're taking the judging course. By the way. So again, that's why I hate this misleading thing of leaning into damage, because what did we just say about Speculation City? Dude, we don't need, the judges are hard enough to trust. This sport is hard enough to judge, in fairness to the judges. Do we really need to make Speculation City a larger place to navigate? You get what I'm saying? That's right. Where it becomes dangerous, because now we're like, oh, you know, Umar did more damage throughout, did more scoring throughout the round, but you know, Merab landed that one right hand, and you got a takedown, which, by the way, takedown is just a positional change in the criteria. It does not score a ton at all. But yeah, that's the danger, right? So now now a round is basically being decided on how much you think someone was hurt. And if you don't see how that's dangerous and how that plays out in even rounds where it's an almost, you know, and I'm not saying it was a 90-10 split, but we have seen that before, hence the Whitaker-Romero definition. That's what I'm trying to explain. Sorry to get long-winded on that, folks, but hopefully you guys can at least kind of understand that as we push on. But yeah, I took the Cory Sandhagen points handicap. I genuinely think he has a chance of cashing that, but you can't, you know, pick against Merab. It's really tough. So I don't know if I'm a bitch here for playing the points handicap and not picking him, Mike, but that's where I ended up, brother.
I listen. I think my heart, in my heart, I'd love to see Sandhagen win this fight, just because guy's been through it. You know, he's stuck around. He did what he had to do. He put his work in. This is a very deserving opportunity for him. I just don't see him winning.
Yeah, it's going to have to be a Jack Della Maddalena, Bilal Muhammad type performance where he just comes in there, right, with like not that Jack needed the perfect performance to win that fight, but, you know, how it played out.
Yep.
So let's move on to the next one. Another really good fight here. Jiří Procházka versus Khalil Rountree. Jiří minus 175, your favorite. Comeback on Rountree, the underdog, plus 145. Total set for this round, it's a 3-rounder and a violent one. They agree. Over 1.5, though, is minus 145, to be fair. Under 1.5 rounds, plus 125. That kind of surprises me. It did open at like pick 'em odds for the totals, which makes more sense, because who the F knows, right? Before I talk, but I want to see what Mike knows. Before I see what Mike knows, though, let me throw out some quick southpaw stats for you guys. Jiří Procházka's 2-0 or 2-2 against UFC level southpaws. The 2 losses, like, what were the losses? You actually have to go pre-UFC there. You got guys like Bohan Velichkovic, who fights at 170, which is crazy enough. Wow, and now I'm blanking on that. But both guys basically took him to the ground really fast and earlier in his career. And Abdul Karim Edilov, the guy who I think he's dead now, but he was like the former chief bodyguard of Ramzan Kadyrov, and then I think he died mysteriously, and now Khamzat. That's why everyone was worried for Khamzat, because they're like, oh no, he's taking the dead guy's position. That was Edilov, folks. Little trivia there. And then to the relevant southpaw wins, Mike. He beat Jamal Hill his last time out. Looked really good, shifting the southpaw to land the left hand. Like I always talk about, the left hand is everyone's always focused on the open stance. The right hand, it's the left hand is the southpaw killer, baby. Just ask James Toney all about that. He did similar things. Of course, a lot smoother than Procházka did. And of course, Dominic Reyes, in a crazy war we all remember. I picked Reyes to beat him because I thought, Jiří got hit with the disproportional amounts of lefts. That still holds true, but he did look much better with his head movement and his defense in that Hill fight. So yeah, he stands at 2-2 against UFC level lefties. He's favored here, Mike. Do you agree with that? If so, what are your feelings, man?
I'm not a big Jiří Procházka guy. I think he's got a shitload of liabilities. I think that he's been exposed so many times. I think he's a good fighter. I think he's good for the sport. I think that whole samurai image, which I don't believe in, like I don't believe in any of that shit that he's throwing out, is cool, for people to kind of grasp onto, and it's an interesting story and stuff. But when you look at his fights, like, okay, he came in, he beat Ozdemir, great. He fights Reyes. Reyes had him rocked, got caught with that elbow. It was a great fight. Fights Teixeira. Teixeira technically beat him the entire fight. Then he comes back and he wins like the last second with that submission. Then he has an injury, and I'll never forget. I can't believe, like, this was what blew me away when he had the injury that Dana White said it was like the worst injury he's ever seen in his, and people actually, this is how, like, when you see, like, when like content providers who actually picked him in that fight, that's, you got to seriously question him. When you get the president of the company coming out saying it was the worst injury I've ever seen, and then he comes back to fight Poatan, and you actually pick him to win that fight, that to me is extremely questionable. Like, I was so confident, and I usually don't stand on like hills like that. I was like, dude, there's no way he's winning this fight. If that injury was real, there's no way he's winning that fight. Poatan comes in and beats him. Then he fights Rakic. Obviously, with the, he was coming off a knee injury there. Then he fights Pereira again. People went back to him on that one. Now he's healed. Now he's in, and he gets even more embarrassed. Then he fights Jamal Hill, and I was never high on Jamal Hill. I was one of the guys who said Jamal Hill is completely overrated. And I like Jamal Hill. I think he's a tough kid. I think he's got good boxing. I think he throws things down the center line. I think he's, he's a dog. He's going to fight until he can't fight no more. But overall, I just don't think he was a very good fighter. I still don't. Procházka, for as crazy as he is, he needs chaos. If you do not give him chaos, you will be Jiří Procházka. He's got his hands down. He doesn't check kicks. He utilizes his head all over the place. He's bopping his head. If you are a very disciplined fighter and you don't get baited into these chaotic exchanges and you kind of mind your P's and Q's, he's extremely hittable. He's extremely beatable. And he does have some chin issues. I mean, we've seen him rock to the body. We've seen him rock to the head. We've seen him rock we've seen him knocked out cold where he thought he was on fucking Jupiter. So like, he's extremely a very beatable guy. He's very, very beatable. And then when you look on the other side and you look at Rountree, this is a guy who I was never high on when he first came in. I was like, this guy's got no takedown defense. He's got no wrestling. Great story, great physical specimen story, coming from where he came from, but I just wasn't high on him. Then he goes to Thailand and he starts working on this new formula for him. And when he first came out with it, I was like, he doesn't look right doing it. He doesn't look like he's comfortable in his own skin with this new technique. But all of a sudden, it started working, and it started working, and it started working. He started dialing in it more. He started getting more confidence, and he started really buying into this, like, I have something here. Even though he lost to Pereira in that fight, the respect that I've got for him after that fight was endless. I mean, just chin, the dog that he was, the firepower that he brought into that, the not being afraid to engage with the boogeyman, like, everything that he did was so, like, impressive on a loss. And you can't really say that a lot. I mean, you'll say, well, great fight, guys, awesome fight, but he impressed me more in that loss than he did in his entire career. Then he comes back and he fights Jamal Hill, and that was the worry. You're like, after taking that beating, because he did kind of take a beating in that fight near the end, how is he going to bounce back from this? And he 50-45s Jamal Hill on 2 cards. And I'm looking at that and I'm saying, okay, well, we know that didn't affect him that much. We know that obviously Jamal Hill didn't have the greatest game plan. He didn't look that good in there, to be honest with you. He wasn't pulling the trigger enough, but it could have been in respect to Khalil Rountree's power and just the approach that he was bringing. And then I try to match that up with Jiří, and I'm saying he absolutely 1,000% can beat Jiří Procházka. He's got to utilize that game plan. He's got to stay grounded. He's got to let him jump around. Let him do whatever the fuck he wants to do, but you do not follow him. You let him come to you. And when he comes to you, you fire something down the middle. There's going to be plenty of opportunities to hit Jiří. You just got to wait. You can't try to get something back if he hits you, and you have to allow him to kind of break his mold and say, well, I'm doing all this stuff. I'm hopping around. I'm poking you. I'm prodding you. Do whatever you want. But the minute you cross that fray, the minute you come into that void, you're going to get hit with something, whether it's going to be a nasty leg kick, whether it's going to be, one of those chop and hammer fists that he does. You're going to get hit with something. And you keep on that track. I think the damaging strikes, the more solid bite down, on the mouthpiece strikes can come from Rountree. And I'm gonna make a ballsy call here. I'm gonna say Rountree is gonna knock him out.
I agree. I actually think Rountree could do another Modestus Bukauskas. It could look like a lot like that. You've seen Desperado, right?
Of course.
94, right? It's gonna look like that scene in Desperado where the guy's like doing the fancy dancing, like almost capoeira, the Mexican, and then the other guy does like, he comes in there looking like Muay Thai, and then he just stomps the knee. I was like, I think the only thing
I fear is Yuri's gonna grapple.
He could, and his grappling, has looked better in spots. I shared that highlight of him, like his his one takedown in his first 3 appearances was like the most ugliest thing in the world against Dom Reyes. And since then, he's been able to score 2 more takedowns in fights against Poatan, actually, although he wasn't able to do much with those, right? But again, he's not a game over grappler. I mean, Glover, I know he submitted Glover in round 5, but that was just that was a crazy fight. No matter who gets finished at that point of the fight, it's not even what finishes him, but what finished him, which was the case, by the way. Back to body work, why I always say, that's why I always hate people why I hate people speculating the big slap shot might have won the round. Meanwhile, actual scoring shit is happening. Like Glover Teixeira, he actually credited it was the body shot. Glover said it was a body shot from Jiří in like round 3. He never recovered from. So he was on fumes. And you go back and yeah, it's clear. He was just on fumes. Like and you know, when you're tired, your black belt becomes a white belt. You know what I'm saying? You get caught in a bad position, you're just done at that point. So I don't know how much game over his grappling is. And yeah, like you were saying, I agree. Man, I agree so much with your notes. And I love this, Mike. We're getting to the point where we've been doing this long enough now where we're getting to break down guys like twice over. But we're still at the point where we're learning like each other's takes. And a lot of the things you're saying and I'm saying, oh, it's not like we're, in some echo chamber. Like these were takes you had or I had before we knew each other, right?
Yeah.
So when we align on those, like with which we came to with a Hill and Rountree breakdown, right, folks? We nailed that fight. If I dare pat ourselves on the back, even the leg kick calls and everything, right? He's going to chew the shit out of his legs. And yeah,
before you go into your breakdown, I want to add one more thing in because I want to see if you're there.
Yes.
Obviously, we know that mental is humongous.
Yeah.
In fighting, you got to be mentally there. You got to right. So one of my turning points with even this was when I watched the Jamal Hill fight over again. Now, I'm not saying this because you know Rountree and he's your friend. I'm saying this because this is ultimately like what I think about him.
Sure.
I think he's a pure gentleman, right? He's a pure gentleman. Yeah. He's very gracious in win. He's very gracious in defeat. But something happened to him in that night with Jamal Hill when he won that fight and he completely shucked him off. And he literally didn't even want to look at him after the win. After completely annihilating him, he didn't even want to look at him. And that showed me this guy's got a fucking chip on his shoulder now. And I like it. I like it because now he knows like I've arrived. I'm here. I belong here. And I really did like that. Like, I know like there was no bad sportsmanship to me with that. Like, you had Dean pulling him over saying, look, he's trying to talk to you. But I like that he's got a chip on his shoulder now.
Yeah, no, I like that too. And again, Jamal Hill, not to pile on to him, but he talks a lot of crap and doesn't necessarily is not the greatest at making friends, right? I mean, this guy, he's fighting his own brother at his fair time. You know what I'm saying? Like, probably not the most agreeable guy. So yeah, hard to take it out on Khalil there. But you're right though, and I got to state my bias here, right? If I stated my bias as far as liking a guy like Poatan, how do I not state my bias from a guy like Khalil, who I knew back when he was the 300-pound kid when we were back at the Rock and Java going to hardcore shows and stuff like. Yeah, I obviously have, I'm not his best friend or anything like that. We were never super close or anything like that. But yeah, obviously I have bias from being friends, running in the same circles from like being kids and shit. Like, like there's bias there, folks. So please take that. That being said, I do back up what I say with facts, as we saw again with the Hill and Rountree fight. And just the fact that alone that I even call out biases should set me apart from most of the people you guys watch, because I don't know many people that do call out their own shit, much less their biases, right, Mike? So you good point there. But yeah, I do got Rountree here. And, Mike, I was telling Dayton that, like, he was like, hey, who's the Benji Boy Dog of the Week in the private chat? And I'm like, this is before we got too deep into the show. Even before we got our breakdowns out on the main, I said, I'm going to guess Poatan and Rountree. And sure enough, my other dog play here is Khalil Rountree plus 155 at 1 unit. I was admittedly surprised to see him as a dog, much less this much of a dog. To be honest, I don't think anybody should be greatly favored in this fight. I think it should be closer to a pick'em.
It should be dead
Mike,
even.
Yeah, and Mike, even though I hate, and speaking of that, even though I feel like this analysis is almost like stupid when you really break it down, but it's one of those things that everybody says all the time. I'm not trying to take any shots at anybody. I say it. We've all said it, but when you break it down, you're like, this is kind of a stupid saying, right? When you're just like, whoever's plus money I would take. It's like, no, that's not analysis. Like, give us who you think would win. But Mike, this is kind of one of those fights where it actually applies, right? Where you're like, regardless of what your analysis, who you like, or what your pick is, and how you came to that conclusion, from a betting perspective, is this not one of those perfect fights where like, oh, this is a fight where you just take whoever's the dog?
Yeah, I mean, I honestly, if Jiří was the dog, I wouldn't bet him.
Wow. Yeah, I probably wouldn't bet him either. But
I think it's an even fight, but if Jiří was the dog, I wouldn't bet him just for the mere fact that, like, I just see so many defensive flaws in his game that have exposed over and over and over again. And I just feel like Rountree doesn't expose all that much, even though he does have some exposés and stuff like that. But I feel like he's got that like bone thudding power that he's not going to hurt him. If he hits him, he's going to knock him out.
Yep. The body, Jiří's shown propensity to be hurt to body shots too, by the way, even in the last fight against Hill. And between Khalil's body kick,
he's got nasty kicks, dude.
Yeah, nasty. Jiří, by the way, porous leg kick defense. Not good against Khalil Rountree, right?
He doesn't check
Poatan. Yeah, exactly. And then what I said about the left hands being the common culprit. Khalil's got a killer left counter. And then there's also the weapon that I actually think is going to finish him. I just mentioned all the stuff that's evidence-based. There's one that's not as evidence-based that I actually think is going to finish the fight, and it's the one shot that a southpaw should never leave home without. You know it, Mike. The check right hook, baby.
Yep.
And that thing is going to be real live against an aggressive, wild guy like Procházka. So, yeah, man, give me Rountree here, and I have a feeling our Benji Boy Dog of the Week, Mike, maybe the chat will help us out. What you guys think? I have a feeling it's going to come down. We're going to get to the rest of this card much faster. We'll see where we end up. But I have a feeling, Mike, it's going to come down between Poatan and Rountree for our Dog of the Week.
Could be.
All right, let's push on. I'm going to try to guess Dayton's Dog of the Week. I think he's going to go back to looks this week, which might make it harder to pick. But let's go to it's definitely not getting a lot of looks in this fight, at least from one side. We got Josh Emmett versus Youssef Zalal. Lord Voldemort himself, the fighting Falmer. Of course, Youssef Zalal is going to be a big favorite in this spot. He is minus 550. Plus 370.
That is so insulting that it's crazy.
It's insulting, and I'm gonna have evidence to. It's not just opinion, but I will have evidence to back that opinion up. And I'm sure you will too, Mike. Of course, the totals in this is 2.5 rounds in this 3-rounder. Over 2.5 minus 250, under 2.5 plus 205. Over still too chalky to taste, but they're guessing the Zalal footwork decision. Now, Zalal's had some finishes before that. The Jack Shore fight and this and that. And Jack Shore, I'm a pudgy guy who likes Jack Shore, but that was a pudgy Jack Shore in a weight class he didn't belong in, which is enough to make me not value that sample too much. But then you add in the fact that he was on kind of a retirement on his way out, right? Laying the gloves down. How much do you put into that? And then you get a shot on his way out retirement guy. Like, I don't use the word shot often at all, folks. I hate using the word shot and robbery. So when I'm using it, there's usually a good reason. And he gets a win over a shot Calvin Kattar, which he drops round 3-2, by the way. Just letting Calvin Kattar come at him. And man, I hate to say it because I am a guy who can come off like I've eaten too much. I've had too much coffees. I can be very annoying. I get that. So maybe it's a little, you hate your own there, but man, it's just Zalal. Something he seems like the nicest guy in the world, but something is annoying. And I hope that it's that bias isn't gnawing at me here, Mike. But yeah, regardless if you pick Emmett or not, this feels like a dogger pass spot. Emmett is spoiler alert. I didn't play him straight up, even despite the stupid line that he's at, because I'm going to put that in a round robin. I don't need to go out and pick and throw major exposure on a big dog, even if it's a stupid price, right? We'll see. Maybe I am justified after we hear what you have to say, Mike. But let me just say the line here is silly, and I'll have more line talk. I don't want to eat any more win. I genuinely curious your thoughts on this, Mike. But Youssef Zalal, and I'll pull up this example for another line that in comparison to what I'm playing, but Youssef Zalal is a bigger favorite, both as the opening line, right? Not even the public push, the minus 550, what he opened at. He actually opened as a bigger favorite over Josh Emmett than Lerone Murphy. Undefeated title challenger should be. It was. Does that make sense to you, Mike?
Bro, this is one of those fights where I got to be honest with you. Like, I'm very baffled by this line, and I'm going to make mine really short. I'm going to make mine really short because it's just these are the points I need to make on this fight. It's 100% a dogger pass situation for me. I will also say this is one of my fades in DraftKings. At a $9,300 price tag, I'm not going near Zalal. And here are the reasons why. And the crazy thing is, after all that negativity, I am picking him to win the fight.
Yes.
But this is why I'm very cautious about this fight, because I keep asking myself, where does he win? Like, where does he win? Is he gonna, like, you know, when you look at the landscape of these guys that go away and come back, you know, few of them have been able to do it. You have Moreno's been able to do it. You have Dalby's been able to do it. And now you have Zalal's been able to do it, obviously at a very high level. He's looked fantastic. His grappling looks, but like when you look at his grappling and like, is he going to be able to out wrestle Emmett? Is he going to be able to, you know, out grapple Emmett? Is he going to be able to get like position on him? Is he going to be able to knock him out? Like, there's so many like things. Like, the only way I see him winning this fight is honestly by decision. And I do see him winning the fight by decision because I just think he's going to be a little bit more faster, a little bit more elusive. I think Emmett does get frustrated. We've seen him recently in fights kind of trying to hunt guys down too much, and he has no way of setting things up. He just kind of digs in and swings, and it's like a hope and a prayer. And if he catches you, you're going to fucking sleep. You know, but at the end of the day, like, he just doesn't have those puzzle pieces to make things happen on his own merit. They got to kind of happen for him. And I don't think Zalal is going to allow that to happen. I don't think Zalal is going to, you know, step on a landmine that he's going to get caught with something. But when you're looking at like the price tag of you know, the Vegas line, and you're looking at a finish at that point, you're saying, well, minus 500, minus 550. This guy's no, like, where does he finish him? I don't see him knocking him out. I don't see him submitting him. I don't see him having a lot of success in the grappling or the wrestling with a guy like Josh Emmett. Like, he might not even be able to take him down. You know what I mean? So it's like, it's a very tough sell for me. Like, to me, it's a dog or pass situation. Because if you're telling me, like, if I'm gauging this and saying, I got this kind of going to the cards, unless Emmett catches him with something, anything can happen at that point on the cards. Anything can happen with these judges on the card. So why would I bury even in a parlay?
Absolutely.
Why, you know, with that, and why would I do a DraftKings 93, 9,400 when I think it's going to the cards anyway, and he's going to have to be super cautious. So I think he's going to win the fight, but I think it's going to be an uneventful fight. I don't think it's going to be like some barn burner of a fight in any way, shape, or form. I think he's going to have to mind his P's and Q's. He's going to do what he needs to do to win, but he's not. I don't think he's finishing Emmett, dude.
Yeah, no, Emmett's way too tough, man. You look at the Topuria fight. You know, he's one of the guys that survived some arguable 10-7s. You know what I'm saying? And you know, I think it's just a fade on age. Which the crazy part is, and I said this in my breakdown. And again, take interviews with a grain of salt, right? Emmett was going through a lot of injuries and fighting through a lot of injuries in that stretch of losses as well. And he said ahead of the Lerone Murphy fight, he's feeling the best he's ever had. And to his credit, again, what's the evidence? Not speculation city. What's the evidence? Well, he came in there and he was both shooting and scoring takedowns, something he hadn't done in years, right? And he was able to do that against a guy like Lerone Murphy, who, say what you will, that guy's a good counter fighter in almost every phase, right? Not that he can't be taken down or has like perfect takedown defense, and Emmett broke it, but that counted for a lot, right? And again, what are the results? We talked about the betting line, right? The numbers before, Mike, right? Like that Lerone Murphy was opened at not even as big of a favorite as Youssef Zalal, right? Well, what are the results? Well, the results kind of play in to my play here, which, again, I'm picking the same thing as you, Mike. Officially, it's probably going to be a boring Zalal win. But from a betting perspective, there ain't no way you can touch Zalal. And, again, you can call me a biatch here again, a who's head. But, I picked the favorite, but I took the points handicap on the dog. However, unlike the Sandhagen dog, this is a 3.5 points handicap. So you only need one round to win. And as far as to tie in, as we'll push along faster on these next fights here, folks, I promise to tie into the points handicap. Well, what I said, remember what I said, for 5 rounds, you need 48-47 on 2 cards and a 49-46 on 1 card, right? To cash it. Well, Josh Emmett actually cashed that points handicap. For anybody that played it, that is, I didn't. But just, again, looking at evidence for, is this worth a play? And he cashed that points handicap against Lerone Murphy in that fight, Mike. Like, he did much better than you think. And also another thing is, not only was that justified in a loss, that points handicap, we have seen Josh Emmett, back to that Calvin Kattar fight, right? We have seen him win fights where he probably shouldn't, right? And, well, what's the common thread there? Again, it's not just me ranting about these things. I rant about these things for a reason, folks, because they are literally apropos and come up all the time. Well, if you look at Josh Emmett's round scorings, the judges, whether it's fights that he should be competitive or shouldn't, regardless of your thought of it, the judges can't agree with each other. Why is that, Mike? back to the same thing I've been harping on. Big slop shots can really fuck up scoring, right? Especially in this criteria era of damage. And as much as I want to be Mr. Contrarian, how much could I really blame a judge for thinking one of the most powerful freaking thudders in any division, much less featherweight, is scoring damage, right? Like, how much can you really blame them? You get what I'm saying here, Mike?
Yeah.
Does this track as far as the value?
I'll tell you one thing. If you're an Emmett backer, if like you guys out there, if you're like backing Emmett, I'll give you a real penis erector for you here.
What's that?
Plus 700 by knockout.
Oh, yeah. Oof.
I mean, that's a dick tingler right there.
Maybe I throw that. Maybe I throw that in the round robin instead. You know what I'm saying? I mean, that's
700.
That's a round robin.
Even the minus 200 for Zalal by decision. There's no value on that for me.
Nope.
You know what I mean? So it's like if you guys are an Emmett backer and you really believe in your heart that he's going to win this fight, number one, it is a dog or pass situation, and number two, if you really believe that he's going to win, if you see something that me and DT don't see. There's so many angles on this fight that you can bet. You could sprinkle. You could sprinkle him by knockout at 700. You could sprinkle him by decision plus 700, or just him winning the fight. So,
well, I like the points handicap because
you guys can play it, but I'm from a Zalal end of it. I'm off it.
Well, I got the points handicap all the way up at plus 180, 3.5 points. So he could win by knockout or by decision and cash it, or he doesn't have to win it all, folks. He could actually just have to win one round, which means
the plus 3.5 is actually a nice play, actually.
At plus 180, I mean, you don't have to put a full unit on that to get a
return.
He
could be losing the whole round and catch him with a shot, just drop him, and then he steals the round. Or
like we just said, Mike, he doesn't have to drop him, right? According to round examples that we've given out previously.
Well, you know what I mean. I'm saying like he throws exactly that round, but drops him.
Yeah, he just needs one big moment, basically.
That's it.
One big moment.
That's it. Yeah,
doesn't even need the knockdown, and that cashes, right? So, yeah, I had a feeling you'd be you, and we'll see the audience. It doesn't matter. Again, I'm not telling you guys what to play. But as far as my sanity goes, I think this is a little more of the same points handicap you guys could get behind than the Sandhagen one. I think they both got legs to them. They both got a chance, but I like this one a lot better. I like this one a lot better, and you get a better price on it too.
Yep.
All right. So, we're going to push on the rest of these a little more faster. Thank you to and if you have any complaints about it, thankfully, our amazing producers put timestamps in there for you guys so you can skip ahead if you're listening in the future. But kicking off the main card, a middleweight fight again, motherfucker. All right, we got Joe Pyfer. Joe Pyfer coming in as your favorite minus 250. Abus Magomedov. Sorry, smooth operator stuck in my head. Plus 200 on Abus Magomedov. Over 2.5 rounds, minus 250. Under 2.5 rounds, plus 205. Body bags, which totally sounds like his Call of Duty nickname, by the way. And you know this guy's a video game player because he was referencing Hitman. And apparently he wants to change his name to Body Cam Off Joe Pyfer, which says a lot. What do you think about this play, though, Mike?
I think this is another crazy line. I got to be honest with you. I think this should be, like, from a DraftKings perspective, it should be like 81-81 or 82-8 in the favor of Pyfer. Like, I think it should be a close fight. I can't stand this guy. You know why I can't stand this guy? Because you're talking to somebody who grew up in the fight game, you know, who was in Paterson, New Jersey, going to these sweaty gyms where everybody I've seen that is involved in boxing or MMA, they came from something. They came from hardship. They came from, the way I got into it is I got kicked out of numerous grammar schools. I don't tell many people that, but I'll tell you guys that because I really don't care. It was when I was a kid. I got kicked out of numerous grammar schools for fighting. So it was my father's way of disciplining me. I'm going to throw you, want to fight? We're going to throw you in a boxing, in the boxing gym. And obviously I come from a family of boxers. So my mother didn't like it in the beginning because obviously she doesn't want her son in there getting bopped around. But that's how I started. So we all came from every time this guy does a fucking interview, it's like, I came from nothing. Who gives a shit? Like, nobody cares. There's 100 stories in the UFC where people came from nothing. They came from nothing. They came from nothing. I don't like him. There's something about him that he just rubs me the wrong way. There's certain fighters that do that. Brian Keller's another guy. Never did nothing wrong to me. It's just his look. He's got a look about him that I don't like. I don't know what it is. Right? I don't know if it's his head. I don't know what it is, but there's something about Kelleher that just rubs me the wrong way. But Pyfer, it's his attitude.
Me and Zalal, sorry.
And I don't think he's that good. I don't think Pyfer's that good. I think he's a big-bodied kid. I think he's a powerful kid. I think he's got talent. But honestly, I got to be honest. I think all this shit talking is a way for him to compensate his mental breakdowns. I think he does break down in the cage. I think when he does get tired, he has the ability to fold. I think he comes from a good camp and stuff like that. He's obviously got good training partners, and I'm not saying he's not good, but I've won a lot of money fading him in times, especially with Hermanson. I was all over Hermanson in that fight. I think you can mentally disturb this kid as the fight goes on. And as bad as Magomedov is, like, I don't think he's a bad fighter. I don't think he's a good fighter. I think he's very, very well capable of beating Joe Pyfer. I do. I think he's very, very well capable. The only thing is sometimes Magomedov strays away from his game plan and he does some really goofy things. And so I really don't know. I think this is a very, very 50-50 fight. I know a lot of people, they want to jump on the Pyfer train, Pyfer by knockout. He maybe does. Maybe he sparks him out in the first round. But after watching that Gastelum fight, when I saw the way, he knocks down Gastelum 2 times in 1 round and then completely lets the smaller guy with a smaller reach right back into the fight, almost stealing. Technically, like, there are certain rounds that Gastelum could have stole if he put his foot on the gas. Like, he just starts to wither down the stretch. And if Magomedov is there and Magomedov, writes the right script here, there's no reason why Magomedov can't beat him. To me, this is another situation. Like, I'm picking Pyfer here. As much as I can't stand him and it pains me to do it, I'm going to pick Pyfer here. I think he's going to have the bigger moments in the fight. But I'm not going near this. I think if anybody wanted to sprinkle a little money on Magomedov, I would have 0 problems with it.
Dude, you're speaking exactly what I thought. So much so that I'm like, the words are penetrating, and I'm like, oh yeah, what? Why am I picking Pyfer? Like, I might pick him for the sake of the show, but I'm on the fence on this one, man. I'll be honest.
Me too.
If I pick,
I almost want to say no pick.
Yeah, this is because I was going to say this one for the purpose of the show. I'll give you guys a pick like we do, but I don't do this often. If I do, it's maybe like one, that I'll put, and I reserve the right for every fight. But in my defense, I maybe do it once a card, if at all, right? But this is one where I might change my pick from Showtime to this. So you want to see what I post officially over on Twitter? I post on Fight Day at Dan Tom MMA. Post for free on my Substack, Dan Tom MMA. If you're over on Substack, go check out my guy Phantom Punch Breakdowns. This is excellent stuff. My guy Ghost in the chat, an enforcer in the house, along with James Kendrick, another enforcer who has a good question we'll get to later. Shout out to you, James. But yeah, this is a fight that's really tricky. And it's also funny, Mike, because we've talked about we've broken down Joe Pyfer before. And it's funny. I feel like if people were like stereotyping or whatever, they probably would assume like I don't like Pyfer and you do. And it's funny, you're like, Pyfer rubs you the wrong way. And I've been like a traditional Pyfer defender. Like, I've like defended his skill.
Him, bro. Every time he opens his mouth.
Yeah. No. I don't defend that. I don't defend what he says. But as far as like a fighter, right? I try to put all that aside. We're here to break down the fights and stuff. But even at that, Mike, after this last Gastelum fight, which by the way, it's harder to track down some of these more recent fights. A lot of my usual sites aren't working. Feel free to DM me if you have that access, or in the chat if you guys have a new magic site that all MMA vids one for some of the recent ones have been letting down. But yeah, it was really bummer because part of the reason why I defend Joe Pyfer is his grappling and wrestling upside. And that was the fight where he should have showed it in my opinion, against that Gastelum fight, especially as it went deeper, and he couldn't do it. And he even said so himself, like as much as he wants to like have this bravado, right, and cover his tracks on his breakdown, so to speak, which I totally get that read too, by the way, Mike. It's bad when a guy who does that is admitting stuff. And he was saying jokingly, but it was a joke where there was truth in there. You could tell truth got out. He goes, "Oh, I'm finally fighting a guy who has crap cardio like I do." And he's not a clever guy. So it wasn't like he was really trying to even set up a punchline there, Mike. I think he was just telling on himself, which we already knew at this point. His cardio is suspect, right?
Yeah, when you think the cardio is suspect, what do you do?
Panic.
Or right. It's almost like going to a theme park. And me and you go to the theme park and we go on a ride, I don't know, called the fucking Octopussy. Right?
Yeah.
And we get on the ride and I get sick on it. I get nauseously sick on it. So then 2 weeks later, you're like, bro, we're going back on the Octopussy. I'm going to be online like fucking nervous that I'm going to get fucking sick again. So he's going into the fucking fight now and he knows in his mind his cardio's not great. So he's got to change things that he wants to do.
Yeah, dude, you know what? I don't know if I need some dogs here. Spoiler alert for the rest of the picks. I actually... Again, this is a fence fight, man. Check for my normal picks, but I'm going to lean toward Magomedov here. I'm not saying I'm going to play him. He might be someone that ends up in my round robin, regardless of what side I end up on, because like Mike said, even if you pick Pyfer here, I don't know how you can trust him, much less trust him as a favorite, much less trust him at north of a 2-1 favorite, right?
I'm picking Pyfer, but I want Magomedov I want him to win this fight.
All right, folks. There we go. We're a little split on that. Hopefully, we don't have to do a bet on that fight because that would.
No, I'm not going near that fight.
That would been like
I might go in the bathroom and take a shit so I don't have to watch it.
Well, that was like me with Tom. I mean, Tom Nolan came through, thank goodness. But again, my fate rested on a guy that I don't like, right? Yeah. So to your point, yeah, that wouldn't feel great. Let's go to this next fight. I thought that was going to
be a great fight. That was shaping up to be a great fight.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if Ateba Gautier was shaping up to have a great fight, but now he gets a late replacement fight, which sucks. We'll be real quick on this one. Ateba Gautier, or as my guy Brad Teschuk says, Ateba the Hung. No odds yet. I imagine he's going to be a massive favorite against short notice replacement, I believe, coming from the LFA. Treston Vines. He's an American. No affiliation that he's listed out of fighting a camp. No, he hasn't even fought in the LFA. He's fought in Anthony Pettis fighting championships, lost in the CFFC. Haven't done anything on him, but this is just going to be another classic fight where they bring in the dude for the super prospect and it's unbettable and we will learn nothing from an analysis standpoint. And everyone complains about the contender series taking up all our roster. How about like the portion of the roster of these Treston Vines guys, right? Who are like, I know Medina or whatever actually came from contender series, but it's like the same level of dude who don't belong here, but they're going to do the UFC a favor. And now the UFC is going to have to give them another fight. And we're not going to know what to make of him because he probably shouldn't be here. And even if he should be, anybody probably would have lost that debut coming in on short notice to a guy like Gautier. Where on the other side, if Gautier does what he's supposed to do, we will have learned nothing. Can you get my enthusiasm for this fight, Mike?
Yeah, I'm just going to pick with you, but I didn't know.
Yeah, stupid. I hate these
research
fights
on this in any way, shape, or form.
Nope.
It's a setup fight for him. He's going to win, and we're going to okay on to the next one.
Yep, I hate these fights. So let's go to the next fight. Edmen Shahbazyan there. Shahbazyan, okay, there. Against Andre Muniz. Shahbazyan's a favorite, minus 330. Muniz plus 260 to come back on him. Over 1.5 rounds, plus 120. Under 1.5 rounds, minus 140. That under seems right. It seems playable. But I was also bullish on Edmen getting the finish the last time out. And even though Edmen proved me right by showing improvements, even though I know I did state in my bias and whatnot, it was almost like he proved me too right because he improved so much. He actually showed that he could go past round one and win a decision, right? Whereas Muniz, he was a guy I was high on. I believe you were too early on. Anybody who was high on Muniz early, by the way, doesn't sound like it aged well, but you actually made some good money because you were getting him at plus odds in very stylistically favorable matchups. Once he got to the top of the echelon, he kind of got washed out. He is a southpaw, and Shahbazyan, he is 0-2 officially against southpaws. He lost to Derek Brunson, which was an early prospect loss, got grounded, pounded, right? And then he also lost to Gerald Mearshart, and again, that was your classic, from what we thought was the Edmen Shahbazyan to true outcome fight. He either finishes you in round one or he gets finished, and that was perfect for GM3, who either gets finished in round one or finishes the guy gassing, right? So it was one of those perfect true outcome fights. However, I will say he did beat Dalcha Lajambula, who lists himself orthodox, but occasionally, like against Edmen, will fight the entire time southpaw. And then he also, again, like we said, he just beat Andre Petrovsky, who is a switch stance fighter who will primarily fight out of southpaw. I'll have a southpaw report for you guys up at Home of Fight. But man, this is a tricky fight to call. I like the favorite here, spoiler alert, but I feel like this should be an easy round one Edmen. Play it and set it and forget it. Play the under, set it and forget it. But maybe it's the last fight that's playing into my head here too much. What are your thoughts, Mike?
Yeah, so I'm gonna totally mind fuck you right here. You ready?
Okay. All
right. So I want you to picture this. Now we were both high on Muniz coming in, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we've seen some of the things that he was able to do. He obviously submitted Jacare, and he's got a good fighter's frame. His boxing looks pretty good when it's working. Obviously, we know how good his grappling is. And he's been terrible. Then you got Edmen Shahbazyan now, and you got a kid who's been terrible because he's not intelligent, because he's just putting everything into the first round, and then he either wins or he loses afterwards because he just passes out until this fight. So this fight now, he smartens up and he's got this great game plan and he looks great. And we're like, this is the Edmen Shahbazyan we've been waiting for, this Edmen Shahbazyan. But now here's where you got to make the decision. Does fucking Muniz finally snap out of his spell and maybe have that one good fight? And does Edmen Shahbazyan go back to Edmen Shahbazyan?
Yeah, absolutely.
Who do you trust? Like, who do you trust in this spot? Is Muniz going to have that spot where he just comes in and Shahbazyan blows his load and tries to do Edmen Shahbazyan things? Or is he going to stay to that game plan and win this fight strategically the way he absolutely could? That's the problem I'm running into. I'm going to pick Shahbazyan here because I kind of gave up on Muniz, but
same.
If he comes out and he tries to put it on Muniz and Muniz survives, I have a really bad feeling Muniz is going to sub him in the second round.
Yeah. I love that you said second round because here's what I was going to say. I was looking. I need a cheeky round prop for my round robin because my round robin's probably going to be a bunch of money.
Shahbazyan.
Yes, same here.
Yeah.
So my round robins, Mike, are probably going to be a bunch of money line plays because as we're talking about, there's some stupid money lines whether you're picking the dogs or not, right? And round robins are kind of a perfect place for those kind of picks that have value, but you don't necessarily have the confidence, much less the urge to lay major parts of your bankroll on, right? So the round robins can come in useful for that if you still want to have fun at the end of the day. Now, I do want some nice round props, and I'm curious to see what they list, Mike, for fight ends in round 2, because I think that's the hot round for Shahbazyan to get finished, right? For Andre Muniz to get a finish there. Because if it goes to round 3, something went wrong for both guys, right? And even though round 1, like I said, is usually the set it and forget it line, if you're going to back Shahbazyan, again, he is fighting more cautious. And again, similar to Petrovsky, he's going to be fighting cautious because why? It's a guy with grappling upside. And Muniz, say what you will about him, he has got that grappling upside, right? So maybe it's a more reserve Shahbazyan in that first round. He doesn't get the finish to the second, or Shahbazyan does hurt him in the first round, but Muniz is able to, pull guard and either survive on the ground, or because Shahbazyan doesn't want to fall into the GM3 mistake, all he has to do is do that annoying thing where he drops to his back and puts his hand behind his head, and he'll get his recovery time because Shahbazyan is not going to want to engage on him, and then he eventually either gets the finish or gets finished in round 2. So I actually will be looking at the price for fight ends in round 2 as a potential round robin leg there, Mike. But I'll be picking Shahbazyan as well.
Okay.
Next fight, let's go to Farid. This one's I'm really interested. I didn't get to run tape on this one, Mike, but this is a low-key interesting fight. We got Farid Basharat, puts his undefeated record on the line. He's an undefeated Basharat, brother. He is going to be minus 475, big favorite in this spot, opposite Chris Gutierrez, plus 340, over 2.5 rounds, minus 270, under 2.5 rounds, plus 220. Even though that over is chalky as hell, I feel like that could low-key be one of the better.
You go first on this one.
Okay. I feel like the over could low-key be one of the better parlay pieces as in this on this card, by the way, even though I did not parlay it. I'll tell you what I did parlay coming up. But yeah, it actually could be a low-key thing. And I'm not going to lie. I have a highlighted plus 195 Chris Gutierrez points handicap. That's a major points handicap for a guy who's a big time neutralizer. He doesn't get a lot of respect from the fans or the odds makers because of that. It's not a super sexy style. I mean, when he's on. He can finish you with leg kicks. He can finish you with the knees, so he has ways to either catch Basharat at distance or catch him coming in. Again, I want to do more tape though on the Basharat side of things. I'm not as familiar on recall on him as I am a guy like Gutierrez, who we've seen Guti fight for. I've seen Guti's fight from like the regionals before he even got on the UFC. You know what I'm saying? And the dude can make fights really close, even against tough Russian guys who are supposed to wipe the floors with him. But then he can also be in like a draw with Cody Durden, a flyweight on short notice, right? So Gutierrez can also be tough to trust, even if you are a weird hipster fan of his. Now, I'm not as much of a fan of his, and the line isn't bad to the point where I'm going to pick Gutierrez here. I'm leaning toward Basharat, folks, and I'll make that my pick for the show. But my question here isn't so much the pick, Mike. I'm genuinely interested in the fight from an analysis perspective, and from a betting perspective, I am curious. I'm overexposed. I really don't have much room on my bankroll for what I already got played. But man, that Gutierrez points handicap, him just having to win one round at plus 195 is also pretty tempting. That's all I do have for this fight, Mike, though. So I'm going to toss it back to you to see what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so I think that with this fight, like if you look at Gutierrez, obviously we know the camp that he comes from, very well coached, very high level, striking, patient, composed, doesn't really put a lot into his behind his power. Everything's more about tagging and scoring and moving, and that's great. He's very difficult to handle if you're going to have a striking match with him, and there's a lot of riddles and that he throws at you that you got to kind of try to figure out. I think Basharat's a more athletic guy. I think he's more well-rounded, probably a little bit more athletic. But at the end of the day, like, Gutierrez can drag this fucking fight long. You know what I mean? And when you're looking at the price tag, the DraftKings too, when you look at that price tag at 9,500, I think that's insane. I think that's an insane price tag. I think Gutierrez is probably going to be behind the ball, in this fight a little bit. Like, he's going to have to make up some ground, and he's not really good at doing that. Like, once he falls behind, he kind of falls behind. He's got to kind of jump out in front and kind of lead the parade. But I just see him being able to slow this fight down, and if you slow the fight down, you're giving yourself a chance. If you bring this fight to the card, you're at least giving yourself a chance for maybe the judges to see something a little different, or like you said, win that round. The plus 3.5, I do like that a lot, actually. He just has to win one round, and it could very much well be the very first round when Basharat's trying to figure him out. And he's coming out firing off leg kicks and kind of, working the lower extremities, and Basharat's still trying to download the data. That could be the round that he wins. And then ultimately he loses maybe at 29-28. But this is a fight I want to stay away from. I think Gutierrez is very, very dangerous. I do like Basharat. I think he does win the fight by slim margins, though. I don't see this fight being a blowout in any way, shape, or form.
Absolutely. This is a perfect time to bring up my guy James Kendrick's question. Is the best bet one that doesn't lose or the one that you don't make? And to Mike's point of the analysis, is the best bet the one that doesn't lose or the one that you don't make? And it's an interesting question, but I feel like this is a perfect fight to make the argument for the latter, which is the bet that you don't make, because that kind of fits in line with Mike's and my analysis, by the way, where this fight is going to be much, regardless if you want to take the points handicap or not, the fight, and regardless if it cashes or not, the fight will probably be closer and it is a lot trickier to call than the odds indicate. So this would be a case where, smart thing is not making these bets, especially these guys are more known products, to their credit. Again, that's why I'm more excited about this one. They're more of a higher level, but especially with all this lower level slop that we were just talking about coming in, there's a lot of arguments that the smart bet is actually just no bet at all, right, Mike? With a lot of these fights, right?
Yeah, well, listen, we talked about it last week, and I know some dope came into the comments and said, let's not talk boxing. Well, then don't listen when we talk boxing. But I said one of the most ridiculous bets was Crawford money line. It won. Awesome. You guys hit a plus 130, but the only bet to make was plus 230. That was like the only bet to make. You know what I mean? Like, that was the so yeah, you won the plus 130, but that really wasn't the smart bet. That wasn't the educated bet. The smart bet was plus 230. So you could win a bet, and good for you. You won the bet. It won. That makes it a good bet, but it doesn't make it a great bet.
Yep. Well said. And we'll push on to the next fight and keep these ones fast. Just want to say, oh my God, Owls. Yes, you should watch Desperado. Catch up on that, my friend. And if anybody else has some film recs or questions to throw at us that way, you can throw those too, baby. We'll see what we get to. We just want to get to these breakdowns, though. Daniel Santos facing JooSang. So I'll be quick on this one. I'm going to be leaning toward Daniel Santos as the favorite, minus 140. Come back on JooSang, plus 120, under 2.5 rounds, plus 140, over 2.5 rounds, minus 160. This is a tricky one, man, because Daniel Santos is a scrappy guy. These are both guys that will fight for your money. Both guys have finishing upside. I would say we've probably seen more of Daniel Santos's game, so he's probably the safer bet as far as a more well-rounded game. Sang-Yu, I believe, is Chen Sung-Jung's guy. But he's gotten a lot of quick finishes as well, at least when he's gotten to some, more recent fights. I want to see more of them at this level. I've been burned by Santos, and so maybe I'm picking him because I've been burned by him, and I'm picking against the Korean guy because I've been burned by the Korean guys. Now, usually what I always say, it's don't trust the Korean guys at chalk, right? Not to get all race science or any racy there. I love my Korean brothers and sisters. You know that. But I'm just saying I get scary backing my Korean brothers and sisters at chalk. At dog odds, though, I feel like this dog is live, regardless of who you pick. For the purpose of the show, I will side with the favorite. I didn't dive too much into this. I'm going mainly off my recall because I am familiar to a certain extent with both guys. I'm a little more with Daniel Santos. But Mike, what's your familiarity? What's your feeling on this fight?
Yeah, Daniel Santos. I mean, what's not to like about him as far as an entertainment perspective? I mean, the guy's a dog. He gets hurt in like every fight, ends up finding ways to climb back in. Like the kid is super, super fun. But once again, I brought this up with like Jiří. Like he needs chaos. Like you're never gonna functionalize him in a bubble. You're not gonna put him in a box and he's gonna have this perfectly technical game. Like he works best when he tastes his own blood and he's gotta now fight in this chaotic environment. And that's great for us to watch because we're like, what's going to happen next? But with JooSang Yu, this kid is very, very, I'm very impressed with the way he utilizes his jab, the way everything kind of comes down the center line. He understands how to use his range. He's good with distance. He's composed. He doesn't really, get baited into too many traps. Yeah, sure. He's raw. He's going to make his mistakes and stuff like that. But I think everything he does, he throws with intent, but he throws it with pretty good systematic approach. And I like that about him. I think it's a recipe to beat Daniel Santos. I think if you can't hurt Daniel Santos and then be like, oh my God, I hurt him and jump into chaos. You got to hurt Daniel Santos and you got to stick to what would hurt him. And if that means you got to back up for a second and compose yourself and find a new path in to finish it off, great. But once you get into these chaotic exchanges with Santos, you're allowing him back into the fight. And I think that from what I've seen, the little that I've seen of JooSang Yu, he seems like he's pretty composed in there. So I think from a technical aspect, that's what's going to win him this fight. So I'm gonna take the dog here.
Nice. Yeah, I could do a lot worse. Maybe I end up throwing him as a dog pick when I review a little more tape for this fight. But yeah, I'll stick with Daniel Santos. But it's not a fight that I'm too bullish on, to be quite honest. Though I had to be careful because so far our dissension picks have been fights that neither of us, either at least one of us, really are on the fence about. Now it'd be terrible to place a bet on one of those fights, but we may have to. Let's get to the next one, shall we? Macy Chiasson versus Yana Santos, or as I used to like to call Yana Kunitskaya, or I should say Mama Kunitskaya, but then she became a mom and it's not as sexy anymore. Anyways, we got Macy Chiasson as your favorite, minus 200. Yana Mama Santos plus 170, the comeback on her, over 2.5 rounds, minus 240, under 2.5 rounds, plus 200, probably going over. Don't disagree with that. Before I throw it your way, Mike, Yana Santos is facing a southpaw. She is 1-1 against southpaws. She lost, of course, to Holly Holm, although that was more of a grappling loss, the clench-heavy Holly Holm, right? And then her win, of course, comes over Chelsea Chandler. I don't know why I have to say her name like that. That's just kind of how I hear it in my head. Let's not look into that. But yeah, she's 1-1. I'm going to be picking Chiasson here, but this is a fight that I honestly have no interest in and want to stay away from. Mike, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, it's this fight's interesting to me because when you look at Yana Santos, like I just never thought she was good, but then she does things that are good. Like I'll shop like Yana Santos, she's not good, and then I'm like, wow, she looks pretty good. She's just a very vanilla Taekwondo style, like fighter that kind of finds ways to keep herself in the fight, And then when you look at Macy Chiasson is a victim of herself. And what I mean by that is she is, when she's at her best, when she's mentally there, when her life is good outside the cage, she's like Tim Means. She's like the Dirty Bird. She reminds me very much of the female version of Tim Means. She's got good clinch game, good elbows. She gets nasty. She's very much like a prototype. Like she could pass for his sister. Really, like she could pass for his sister. But then when you could see when things aren't going good in her life, or she's having some issues, or she's mentally unwinds a little bit, like it really shows up in the cage. And that's what you got to be careful of. And if you're going to show up like that in the cage to someone like Santos, who ultimately isn't going to put it on you, but she'll stay around enough to win rounds and to win minutes and maybe steal around here or there, that can be where it's dangerous. But I just always liked Macy. I always thought that she had a very different approach as a woman. She's got a violent streak in her, a violent nature about her. I like her approach with her elbows and her clinch game. And when everything is working in concert with each other, she's actually a pretty good fighter. So I'm going to hope that she comes into the cage like that. I'm going to hope that she comes in and she's at peace, whatever's going on in her life. And she brings that violent nature with her and she wins this fight.
Yeah, I guess the only great technical breakdown, the only thing I'll add before we push on is just maybe the size factor. I didn't realize how big Yana Santos is. We talk about fighters surprising you with size. And like she looks really smaller in her Invicta fight, so maybe that's what threw me off. I always had she was on my radar early, so I also had that earlier image, and I saw her after the Thiago Santos' John Jones fight, when Thiago Santos was in massive crutches, a leg all casted up. And I was like, wow, Thiago Santos must be in bad shape, Mike, because he hired a gargantuan steroided up Russian woman to help him around. And I was like, wait a minute, that gargantuan steroid woman looks like Llanos Santos. And I'm like, wait a minute, that gargantuan steroid woman ate Llanos Santos. And I'm like, wait a minute, that is
Llanos he's got her on the horse meat.
Yeah, man. So again, what we always say, physicality, goes a long way, especially in these women's divisions, more than the men's, right? And B, regardless of what division you are, if you're the tall fighter or you're used to being the bigger fighter, there's always that question mark, right? When you go against the other big, tall fighter, right, Mike? So, but yeah, let's push on to that. This next fight, much more interesting. Patchy Mix buried on the prelims against Jakub Wiklax, a Joanna Jędrzejczyk product coming out of Poland, the KSW scene, training at ATT for over a year now. But he is a plus 240 underdog to Mix, who sits as your favorite at minus 300, over 2.5 rounds, minus 145, under 2.5 rounds, plus 170. Mix is a southpaw, and well, Jakub has not fought any UFC level fighters really, so he hasn't fought any UFC level southpaws, I should say. So it's 0-0 there, but I was able to watch some Jakub fight. I wasn't too impressed, to be honest, but I do think he's a fun fighter. He's a guy who will fight for your money. As much as he gets hurt and rocked, Mike, if you don't put him out, he will come back and fight. He will fight his ass off there. But I'm curious what your thoughts on this fight is.
Yeah, so I watched this kid on film, and then I started digging into his resume and stuff. And listen, I picked against Patchy Mix in his debut. I didn't think he was going to win that fight. I think Patchy Mix is good, but he was doing a lot of shit talking. He didn't seem like he was one of those guys who really just buys into his own hype, and he needed to be humbled, and he did. And now what does the UFC do? They put a lot of behind him. A lot of people are believers in him. So what's one way to get him on track? You're going to give him somebody that their strong suit is his strong suit. So what do? They give him this kid who his strong suit is his grappling. Black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu, likes to, be on the ground, likes to, scramble around a little bit. And that's really where Patchy Mix wants to be. Like, that's where he wants to be. So they're basically giving him an opponent saying, look, we're going to give you this guy. He's got a, decent track record, KSW, right? I think he's from?
Yep.
KSW guy. He's got some exciting fights if you watch him, but he doesn't do anything all that good. It's nothing great, but he is a black belt Brazilian jiu-jitsu, and he likes to play on the ground. So he might accept position with you to have a little sandbox fight. And that's what Patchy Mix wants. So they're giving him every opportunity to win this fight. So although he was a fade for me last fight, I think this is a really good spot for him in this fight where they're trying to give him one. They're literally trying to give Patchy Mix one. And I think he takes advantage of it and he gets the win.
I agree, and maybe there's some bias there because he does train out of my backyard. And I did pick him last time, although I did say the smart play feels like it was Bautista, and I did give the warning of the short notice because Patchy Mix is a guy who he has some scary weight cuts, man. He really cuts a lot of weight to get down into the division. Hopefully he's got a better handle on that now that he has the UFC PI and Vegas in his backyard. But I saw the cuts before the Rafian Stotts fights in Hawaii, which he still won and came out and knocked him out. But yeah, he definitely struggles a bit on fight week. So it's nice to see him with a full camp. I put him in a parlay, Mike. I'll give that other piece as we move down. Speaking of which, Puna, we got another Extreme Couture guy, Puna Heli Soriano, Puna baby, versus Nikolai Verytechnikov. Nikolai Verytechnikov, as Michael Bisping says, Verytechnikov plus 220 is the underdog. Puna minus 270, minus 160 for the over 1.5, under 1.5 rounds, plus 140. I am kind of surprised to see Puna this much favored because I feel like public perception on him was low. And although I was a Puna defender, I could get why it was low, man. He was having some really tough and bad look performances, if we're being honest, up at middleweight. But he also strikes me as a guy who's kind of like Khalil Rountree, where he's got all the physical tools, but he's also like probably just the sweetest, and he is actually. Puna is a sweetheart in person. But there's that living inside him too, right? And, perhaps getting down to the right division help, bring about that confidence and reinstill that mean streak that he initially came on the scene with. And he looks to be kind of, back on track. How far will the track take him? How high will the ceiling go? I certainly won't be making any bold proclamations, Mike, but against a guy like Very Technikov, I think it's a very beatable fight, as Very Technikov has been a very beatable guy. He's a guy who will scrap in all phases, but he will make very poor decisions. And yeah, if you do get him on his back, especially against a guy like Puna with ground and pound, I think it's going to be a bad night. So yeah, all my cards are on the table. Hopefully, I didn't take up all the air in the room. But Mike, what do you got on this fight?
Yeah, I agree. I'm a big Soriano truther. I like his game. I think he's well rounded. The only thing I'll say about him is sometimes he just doesn't play in concert with all his tools. Like that's the most important thing. Like you can have all these different athletes. You could be a good wrestler. You can have a lot of power. You can have good striking. You can have good chin. But if you're not working it all in concert with each other, making it formulate perfectly, like okay, well you're kind of fighting on islands at certain points. And he's just a kid that strikes me like if he can just get it all to click, he's be a really, I mean, and he is a really good fighter, but he could be like that much better if he just figured out like when and how. Like that's really the answers, when and how. And I like him. I like him here. I like his power. I think he carries that power into this division really well. I like his ability to wrestle, his ability to move forward. I think he's pretty durable. I think he's an intelligent kid from what I hear. I've never spoken personally, but just from the way I hear him speak and the way he views things. So RECAP is what he is. Like he's all right. He can be dangerous at times. You can't sleep on him. But this is a really like winnable fight for Soriano, like a very, very winnable fight for him. So I do like him in the spot. And I actually like him to win pretty decisively.
Yeah, I agree. I actually put him in a parlay, the Puna and Patchy parlay, the biased Extreme Couture parlay. If you want to get shitty with it, it's actually totally fine. But I got that, Mike, for minus 107. I probably would have put 2.07 if I was working with my full bankroll. But I'm on life support over here, so I can only afford to put 1.07 for a unit return. But that's what I got, Mike.
Sounds good.
All right, let's get through the last two speed breakdowns so we can get out of here before the 2-hour mark. Apologies, folks. Again, these are 14 fight cards, and we actually do try to give you analysis, and we try to balance it out for the important fights in our defense. In our defense, even if you don't like it, totally cool. But at least we're one of the few podcasts out there giving you this in-depth and recapping and timestamping. You'll be lucky to find one of three, much less two of those three checkbox. But yeah, there's plenty of breakdowns where you just want to hear people like wearing sunglasses and hats going, bro, this guy going to win, bro. There's plenty of that if you want the shorter breakdowns. Ramiz Brahim versus Austin Vanderford. Sorry, I'm not trying to throw shade out there. I'm just being honest, right? Austin Vanderford minus 280, comeback plus 230 on Ramiz Brahim. My over 1.5 rounds minus 160, under 1.5 plus 140. I'll be quick here, Mike. Basically, both guys have a similar strength, which is the grappling. I just feel like Vanderford is the better wrestler and submission grappler. He can get taxed on the feet, and Brahim has shown striking improvements to his credit. Is it enough to beat Vanderford? I don't think so, but I'm not going to be putting my neck on the line on this fight as far as plays go. So give me Vanderford. What do you got, Mike?
The fuck you got against sunglasses and hats?
Yes. Yes. That was perfect. Yes.
So,
yes.
this is a dangerous fight, I think. I do believe this is a dangerous fight. I'm going to pick Vanderford here, but I think the small sample size that we saw him, even though it was a good sample size, I think people are forgetting, like, Brahimaj is pretty defensively sound. Not sound, but he's got a very good ability to kind of stay safe and keep himself in fights. He's not a bad fighter. Like, I don't consider Brahimaj a bad fighter. Like, right. I think people are overlooking him a little bit. I actually think it's a dangerous fight for Vanderford. I think his pressure, his pace, his ability to like kind of run downhill is going to win him this fight. But he might find some problems against a guy like Brahimaj. Like I said, he's got some good defensive capabilities. He understands how to stay safe. He knows where he is most of the time, inside the cage. And it's just really his talent gap that sometimes like hinders him. You could be very intelligent. Like if you can be very intelligent, know what you need to do, but your body just doesn't allow you to really do it. And that's what kind of I look at Brahimaj. I look at a guy who like he knows what he has to do at times. But sometimes his body just doesn't allow him to do it. He's just not capable of doing it, but he knows what he has to do. But that still means he's an intelligent guy, which means he can allow himself to kind of stay safe. But I'm going to go Vanderford, but like I got no real heavy conviction on this fight.
Yeah, last thing I'll say to touch on your analysis there, you're right. I was about to say he's very Jacob Malkoun coded, right? Brahim.
Yeah, he is.
And that approach actually would serve him well. Get a good process, jab your way in, defensively sound, get to that single leg, and work the process. Wash, rinse, repeat. There you go. And that's kind of his. That's what the fight will look like if he does win. To your point there, Mike. Yep. But yeah, both of us picking Vanderfort there. Okay, we got Veronica Hardy versus Brogan Walker to close us out here. Minus 700 for Veronica Hardy. Brogan Walker. God, that face. Oh my God.
She looks.
They did not. They did her dirty.
Dude, she looks dirty. She looks like who fucking did it and ran, dude.
Holy shit! Oh, Mike, I don't want to make him.
It looks like? It looks like she gave someone she gave some guy oral and someone slapped her on her back and her eyes stayed that way.
This doesn't apply to her, by the way. But I just got to repeat one of the most cruelest things I've ever heard somebody say to anybody. You could say this too, but sadly it was to a female. Someone said to one girl, said it looked like her face caught on fire and someone put it out with a screwdriver.
Oh my God, dude! Look
I'm like, that's fucking terrible.
She looks like something from the fucking Conjuring.
I'm sorry. On that note, I'm probably picking Veronica Hardy here, not to add insult to injury. Brogan Walker is a southpaw. Veronica Hardy is technically 1-0 against UFC level lefties. I believe that was JJ Aldridge who she beat. Yep, that was JJ Aldridge 2 fights ago. I'm going to take her here, but these odds are always laughable to me, Mike.
Yeah, no, I got nothing to say on this fight. Listen, Veronica Hardy should win. She's got, like I said, she's got a very long distance style. She's got her husband or fiance at this point. I don't know what he is, but her husband.
Did you just say she has a husband?
Yeah. Who? Veronica Hardy? Yeah, she's married to Dan Hardy.
Shit. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, dude. Well, it's okay. Who cares? You could say she's hot.
Fucking right, she is.
Yeah.
Yeah, she is. Oh, yeah.
She's cute, bro. She's got actually she does a podcast with Dan Hardy. They do it once in a while. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Where they break the fights down together. Nah, she's a piece of ass. I met Dan Hardy, bro. Dan Hardy, believe it or not, I was shocked by how big he was.
Yeah.
I was shocked, dude. He's like 6'3", bro. He's like 6'2", 6'3". He's a pretty big dude. I was shocked, and he's a super, super nice guy. Like, what a gentleman. I met him in Tampa. I was at the Hard Rock at a fight at the Hard Rock, and I met him there, and he's super, super nice guy. And I talked to him for a bit, but no, Veronica's a piece of ass.
I would never, real quick, Mike, don't blow it if you know the answer. Dayton, Veronica Hardy actually used to date somebody that's fighting on this card. Can you guess who it is?
I have no idea.
You know the answer? I want to hear you make a guess. Who would you think would this would be misleading because she's been all over the place on her types, but you're probably gonna if you're gonna stereotype some types, you could be wrong, you could be right, because she's been all over the place with the guys she dates. So this will be a hard one for you guys to guess.
It wasn't Rountree, was it?
Dayton, what's your guess?
Was it Sandhagen?
Okay, Sandhagen, a guess for Rountree. Two completely opposite guys. She went for the Rountree equation. Yeah, she used to.
Yeah, she dated Rountree. Rountree gave it a good old.
Yeah. Come on. Why is it gotta make a whistle like that? All right. On that note, let's go to the.
Anyway, I'm going to pick Veronica Hardy by decision.
Right, yeah.
And no disrespect to Dan Hardy.
No, of course not. All right, folks. We'll get out of here with our recap. Sorry, we couldn't get too much of the chat.
One thing before we do that, I just want to I want to bring up the promo that I got.
Oh, please go ahead.
Yeah, so guys, this week we got it. It's really not a hardcore promo, but we're doing a special as far as if you, we're going to probably run it for a couple more weeks. But if you buy in now, you're getting NFL for free. So you're getting everything. You're getting full breakdowns. You're getting DFS, wagering blueprint, Discord, live stream before the fight, all that stuff to the left. And then to the right, we got 7 guys doing NFL. We got 2 guys in our NFL right now that are absolutely slaying. We got J-Mac, who's on a heater for about a month. And we have Mikey Marangelli, who literally just last week, he hit for like 12 units in NFL. So you're getting everything. DFS plays, roster bully tool. There's no upcharges. It's one price, all in. And plus boxing. Anything with boxing, obviously, if there's a fight, I'll have breakdowns for that. So the madlabmma.com, come check us out.
All right, I got a question before we do our recap. Who's the Benji Boy Dog of the week, folks? Is it Poetan or is it Rountree? Those are our 2 options.
I say we go Rountree, dude.
I think so. Rountree feels more appropriate too.
Yeah.
We'll be Rountree if you heard that, Dayton. Dayton's also going to be queuing up his dog of the week. Now, I feel like he kind of already gave it away in the private chat, but in my defense, I was going to pick it, probably going to pick it anyways, because I said earlier on the show, look good, feel good. Dayton definitely went against that by picking, the ugliest dude on the card last week, Ivan Ersland. So it's Ivan. Sorry to catch strays, Ivan, but you look like you could have been casted in Nosferatu along with Josh.
Who's Dayton? Dayton gave his dog of the week, and I didn't hear him.
No. I'm gonna guess it. I'm gonna guess that he's going for looks, and if that's the case, it's probably one of the female dogs, and if it's one of the female dogs, it's probably Santos. Let's just say that. All right, but that's gonna be my guess for Dayton's dog of the week.
Okay, first off, no, it's definitely not Broken Walker. And I only went with like the look good, feel good, play good, or look good, feel good, fight good kind of reference, just because Montserrat Rendon, I had no other breakdown for her. But I guess the one I'm going for right now would be my dog. Yeah, my dog is barking like crazy. Dog pick of the week, real quick. Alex Pereira. Here we go.
Oh, there you go.
Nice. We got Poeton representation. Cool. So I'm glad we got some Poeton representation, and I'm glad he's got the Dayton juju behind him. Great pick, Dayton.
And he's got Dayton's dog.
Dayton's dog, and he's got the dog barking. My dog, by the way, I will say Brownie barked this fight. Brownie barked for Josh Emmett, and Brownie also barked during, I believe, Magomedov. But yeah, so we got Dayton's dog of the week. Okay, so then our dog of the week is going to be Rountree. Do we have that queued up, Dayton, or should we go to our parlay / head-to-head to buy you some time there? Oh, Benji boy, there he is. My guy Khalil.
Come on, Rountree. Do
all my old friends. Grades. Let's go. All my old friends in one place there. I love it. And we're going to piece together the DLP parlay for you. But first, let's get the head-to-head. Mike, you don't got to pay it off this one. You can owe us a payoff. Unless there's something crazy you want to eat. Is there a way I can assign you the movie Irreversible?
Yeah,
you can get your hands on it.
Bro, you know what movie I started watching Bro,
go ahead.
I'm going to send this to you.
All right.
I'm going to send this to you. Dayton, can I drop a YouTube link in the thing or no?
In the description?
Like when I comment, like in the comments, like if I drop a YouTube link, will they be able to click on it?
I don't think so. Maybe.
All right, well, whatever. I'll just tell you guys.
I can put it in the description after you send it to me.
Okay, you got to watch, bro. You got to watch this fucking YouTube clip. It's like 18 minutes long. It's called The Best and Worst Movie Ever. That's what it's called. And it's this guy who narrates over parts of this movie that makes it so funny but so terrible. It's called Samurai Cop, bro.
Oh, yes.
Bro, listen.
I've heard of this.
But you got to watch this thing. You have to watch this.
Okay, I got to watch this.
Clip. It's called The Best and Worst Movie Ever, Samurai Cop. It's 18 minutes long. Right. Dude, I literally was pissing in my fucking pants the shit that this guy was pointing out in this movie. How crazy.
I love content like that, Mike. That's perfect. I love content like that. But
so what movie?
I'm going to make you watch a Gaspar Noé film, Irreversible. It's one of the most... It's got a 9-minute sodomy scene, no edit, no cut, as my film teacher used to say. No cut, 9 minutes of sodomy, no cut. Really sick guy.
Irreversible.
Watch that film. Irreversible. Gaspar Noé, yeah. It's terrible. It's insane. It's like Memento. It's like the darker version of Memento, if you can imagine that. But yeah, Mike, you'll pay that off next time. Give us a little review. But the bet for this show, dude, we only got 2 head-to-heads, and you're not gonna like them. I'm on the fence on one, and I'm tentatively taking Abbas, and you're hatefully taking Joe. So I don't know how much either of us want that fight for it to be. So here's the other option, Mike. I tentatively took Daniel Santos. You tentatively took JooSang Yu. We could go ahead and head on that
That's
fight.
the bet. That's
okay. Let's do that one.
Because I don't want to have to fucking root for fucking Pyfer, dude.
Yes, I know what you mean. I know what you mean. We both could feel really burned from that either way. So yeah. All right, that'll be our head-to-head bet for this week, folks. Feel free to weigh in on punishments, whether it's food punishments, film punishments, what you think, or if you have specific recommendations. Always welcome. Add, like, comment, and share. We're going to get the DLP parlay for you cooked now, recap, and we'll get the F out of here. I know it's been a long show. We greatly appreciate your guys' views, patience, interest, and hopefully this is very useful. All this analysis and stats that we do give that other shows don't. Everyone has their own analysis. That's great. You got to go and check it out. So we're hopefully you're getting a lot from ours. DLP parlay time, Mike. We got dogs to pick from. I mean, we could put the Benji Boy dog of the week in there for a dog. We could put Poetan in there for a dog. And favorite lines might be honestly, easy and hard to pick depending. We've Puna, we got Patchy Mix. We also got the that over that I liked. And which fight was that? Was it the Basharat Gutierrez? It's like it's the same price as Patchy Mixes and Puna. Those are more bigger chalk prices. Perhaps there's a lower value chalk price that you would like to throw into the parlay, Mike, but throwing it out there, let's do a dog and a favorite each. Is that what we're going to keep to?
Yeah, I'm a little intrigued by something here. I don't want to sound like an idiot for doing this, but I feel like I don't know. Like I feel like going. So for my two, I'm thinking I'm going Merab for one.
Okay.
And Rountree plus 3.5 is plus 105.
Yeah, but the points handicaps aren't allowed in parlays in most places.
Okay. All right.
And I definitely don't have access to it.
At Boost, Magomedov is plus 7.5. That's crazy, dude. And that's plus money. That's plus 100. That's even money. That's crazy. That means Vegas is expecting Pyfer to finish him in the first round, pretty much.
Wow. And that's for his points handicaps?
Yeah, so I'll go Merab, and I'll go Rountree. So that'll bring us to plus 220.
Okay. Merab, Rountree. That's plus 220. Let's go. Would you rather do the
or is
over?
Merab too heavy? Should we try to keep it tighter?
Merab could be heavy. I mean, I feel like we've got decent favorites with either the Basharat Gutierrez over minus 270, and then in the minus 270 range, we also have Puna money line straight up, Patchy Mix money line straight up.
So then I'll do. Wait, what is yours two? You have your two already?
I don't have my two. I'm letting you go first. I'm going to pick what you don't.
All right, let's go one for one. So my dog will be Rountree.
Shit, that's the one I'm having trouble on.
All right, so you take Rountree.
I'll go. No. Okay. Yeah. Then you go.
And I'm going to take. Damn it.
I know it becomes tough. Maybe there's a prop we can take for plus money because I don't want to have as much as I love Poetan and we got the Dayton Juju on there. We got enough exposure on Poetan, both personally for me and for the show. So I don't want to throw that. I want to find like a cheekier one. As far as my chalk line goes, I'll just throw man, I'm just gonna throw Patchy Mix in it for my favorite line, man. Just gonna take the dive on that for my favorite line. So we got Patchy.
That's minus 310.
Rountree.
So now we're sitting at plus 235. If we threw Merab in, we're sitting at plus 324. And then let me see if it doesn't have to be a dog. Let me see. What if we threw in? What are your are we both on the same page with Macy?
Yes.
So then that would be plus 538.
So that's three favorites and one dog.
Yeah, I mean,
I'm down to do that for this card if you want, man. To be honest, is there something toward pick'em prices that we like?
They're more. A lot of them are alt.
Tough.
They're alt like. Actually, I don't know. Shahbazyan's over 1.5 is plus 100.
Hey, how about this? I'll take Patchy out of my favorite. We'll go I'll use Puna instead. And what if we just put Patchy Mix by sub? I know Jakub, I think he's been subbed once. But even if he's been subbed no times, I know he's been stopped a few times by strikes, but I think he can actually get clubbed and subbed, hurt to the body, and then subbed by Patchy. Why
don't you cover all avenues then and just go under 2.5 at plus 135? Just in case he slips on a banana peel.
And what's the price on that? The under
plus 135.
Oh, for the under?
Yeah,
and that's 2.5.
Yeah.
Shit. Yeah, maybe we should do that. And yeah.
Okay, so that's right there.
So Puna, Patchy under.
It's plus. Let me see. So we got Khalil, Merab, and under 2.5 is plus 637.
All right.
And if you want to add one more,
the favorite, my pick would be Puna, but would you rather go with Macy or would you rather go with that under 2.5 with the
I would go
Farid,
Puna.
or the over? I mean 2.5.
I would go Puna. So then Puna,
okay.
It's plus 885.
Wow. Okay. So Puna, Patchy under, the under in the Patchy fight, I should say. And then we got Rountree and then Merab.
Yep.
All right. I like it. All right. I like it.
Right.
Recapping, folks. Let's recap from top to bottom. Sorry about that. Thanks for. I know someone said we should have these picked out. Probably, you're probably right. If you think we should have these picked out, you are probably right. If you want to scope the chat, Mike, see if there's any last minute additions while I recap and get us out of here. We're both taking Pereira as the dog, and that is also Dayton's dog of the week, by the way. We're both officially picking Dvalishvili, but I did take a shot on the Sandhagen points handicap, and that could cash as well as our parlay. Like, in a perfect world, both those cash, right? So we'll see. We both are taking Rountree. That is the Benji boy dog of the week. We were consensus on him last time. We're riding with our reads here. We're both taking Zalal, but we are not big fans of Zalal or the line. I think we were both in agreement of that. That, even from fantasy perspective, we don't really want investment in Zalal. And that 3.5 points handicap at plus 180 is super sexy on Josh Emmett. I fired on that. So reluctant on this fight. Mike, begrudgingly taking Pyfer. I'm semi-reluctantly taking Magomedov. Really feel on the fence on that fight, but taking the dog for the purposes of the show. Probably stick with him. Ateba, Gutierrez, both taking him there over Vines, obviously. We're both taking Shahbazyan over Muniz, but could be trickier. Going to look at the fights ends in round 2 potentially for my round robin, which I'll post in the YouTube comments. Hopefully shows up. I haven't been seeing it there sometimes, man. And then as well as my Substack and on Fight Day at Dan Tom MMA. We are both also taking Farid Basharat over Chris Gutierrez, but again, I feel like Gutierrez could be live there. Over is a good spot. I wouldn't hate anybody hitting almost 2-1 for a points handicap there. Daniel Santos, I'm taking. Mike's taking JooSang, so that is a head-to-head that we are going to have the bet on for this week, folks. We're both taking Macy Chiasson over Santos. We both like Patchy Mix over Wicklax. We both like Puna over Very Technikov. We're both picking Vanderford over Brahimai, but staying away from that one. Both picking Hardy over Walker, but also another inflated fight where we're staying away. I took shots on Khalil and Poetan at 1 unit each. I got Puna and Patchy parlayed minus 107 for 0.107. I got Sandhagen points handicap plus 105 1 unit. Emmett points handicap plus 181 unit. I also took Ank Poetan ends in KO minus 110 for 1.110 unit. We'll see what I throw in my round robins. I'll probably have like big money lines, like if Sandhagen continues to get stupid, or Emmett by KO, like Mike said, that was a stupid number. Perhaps you'll see stuff like that in there, but that's what you'll get from me at Dan Tom MMA. Before we get out of here, Mike, anything you got to say?
No, I just wanted to give you a quick heads up. I don't know how breaking news it is, but Dana White just announced UFC Qatar is Arman Sarukian versus Dan Hooker and Bilal Muhammad versus Ian Gary.
Yeah, solid fights.
Yeah. So other than that, no, guys, let's win some money this week. And like I said, guys, don't be afraid to, when you're especially when you're wagering, you got to look at and wagering and DraftKings. I'll just say this and we'll get out of here. For the wagering aspect of it, like, you can pick a fighter to win. But if there's a hardcore value on the other side and you see pass for the other guy to win, it's not a bad bet to bet the value. Like, that's what you're supposed to do. There's so many bets that I've won that I didn't pick the guy, but I said there's too much value to pass up, and it turns out to be the right side. If you lose, you lose. It's a part of gambling. From a DraftKings perspective, I'll just let you guys go with this. Somebody can be a 9,300, 9,400, 8,900, and you guys can be like, wow, he's going to win this fight. He's going to win this fight. But there's a big difference between cash game playing and GPP playing. Cash game playing, you're trying to run with the pack. You're trying to run with the guys that you really, really know that are going to win. It's not so much about how well they're going to score. It's more about keeping up with the top 50%.
Mhm.
But when it comes to GPP, you got to look at the guys that they're fighting. How durable are they? Are they going to last? What kind of game plan? Even though that they're going to win, you need the upside in GPP. So don't be afraid. If you think you're super confident that a guy's going to win, like Zalal, you can be super confident that he's going to win. But as far as his winning upside and how does he win, you got to register in your mind. Well, is he going to finish him by knockout? Probably not. Is he going to submit him? Probably not. Is it going to be a decision? Probably. So then at that point in time, you got to say to yourself, is that $9,400 price tag or that $9,300 price tag even worth it? So it's not always you think it's going to win. You got to use just common sense in your generations with these things.
Yep, absolutely. And then lastly, I know we're already running late, but I do want to touch on this point. Someone made a comment on it, but it's not for them because these people don't even respond, even when you respond to their comments in good faith. But they did bring up a fair point as far as something I said, where I said casual money comes in early. I misworded that. It's too strong. Obviously, casual money comes in late for parlays and this and that. The point that I was making more is this whole FOMO culture we get, where the line equities are all out of whack because of not just betting availability, which actually makes the casuals get more action early in the week than traditionally. But now that you have cash out options, you have so much false equity in the lines of people just trying to get FOMO to get CLV, as opposed to, picking the winners or getting it right or making sure they're even on weight or getting the actual recon and, reconnaissance and information you need. That's what I was more speaking to. And someone was hanging on to that. I used the word casual. I'm like, obviously, probably the mischaracterization. My bad on that. That being said, I still stand by my point that early money isn't necessarily always right. That's basically all I was trying to say.
Yeah.
And whether it's early days where this wasn't availability with cash outs or now, the same applies. Most of the sharp people I know, Mike, are waiting toward the end of the week. And that's all I was saying.
All right.
All right, guys, have a great week. Good luck on your picks and plays, and always protect your neck.